Alright, I'm sending out messages saying, hey, we're live on Twitch.
I don't say anything. We gotta let everybody know we're live. Chat up. Alright, I don't got anybody in the room yet. But alright. So we're kinda getting settled in. Everybody.
I said I was sending out notifications. Oh, we're not.
We're just getting told.
There it goes.
We're getting told no sound for you. Alright, so granted there's nobody in the chat yet, nobody on yet, but do you want to go through and tell everybody what today is?
Yeah, as soon as people, show up. I mean, the left have no idea what the fuck today is. And it's pissing me off.
No, they do know what today is.
Yeah, they
the
think...
problem is it's purely coincidental. It's purely coincidental. The Army had the birthday a lot longer.
Yeah, the Army's been around for 250 years, and Trump's been around for
79. I believe he turned 79 this year.
I'm looking that up.
Again, 100% absolutely.
79 years.
Yep.
It's his 79th birthday.
It is pure coincidental.
Oh, well, happy birthday to him.
Again,
the Army was formed June 14th, 1775. Literally says 1775 on the flag. The Navy was formed in 1775.
Hello. Glad you could join us. 'Tis my aunt.
Oh, okay. And then the Marine Corps, everybody knows the goddamn Marine Corps' birthday.
Yeah, it's literally the day before Veterans Day.
Oh, Marine Corps, November 10th, 1775, best branch ever. You're not a branch, you're a fucking cult.
Well,
and
branches, cults, corporations, and the redheaded stepchild.
And then Flag Day. So Flag Day is only 248 years old.
So it's 2 years younger.
Yes. Flag Day, observed annually on June 14th, commemorates the adoption of the American flag by the Second Continental Congress in 1777.
Ah, so it's the flag's birthday as well.
That would be why it's called Flag. Yeah. Yeah.
It's fitting. But today is the Army's 250th birthday. We did not watch the parade, mostly because I think we kind of forgot it was on.
I couldn't find any news station with it on
Oh.
because they're all covering the fucking riots.
Everybody's more concerned with the riots than the parade that's been in planning for the last 2 years. So there's that.
And then
Woohoo! We got an update on Legend of Lost Machina.
and then everybody's planning all these
Protests.
no, yeah, these not a king or no King's Day or whatever the fuck it is. One,
It's purely coincidence.
it's just coincidence. He's 79 years old and his birthday just happens to fall on the 250th. Well,
Mine is,
the Army's birthday and Flag Day.
yeah, mine just happens to fall on the same day as Lincoln's. It's purely coincident. It's purely coincidental.
Yeah. At this point, I'm wondering if anybody on the left has any fucking brain cells.
Didn't watch either of what.
The riots or the parade.
Well, it's because nobody's really nobody's covering the parade because it's only happening in D.C.
No, there's multiple. The biggest one was
The
happening
biggest
in
one's
DC.
in D.C. But it's
And why is that even a fucking holiday?
Trump actually made that a holiday.
I know he did. But why?
Holy shit! Your birthday's this week. This coming week.
But why in the fuck do they need another goddamn holiday?
Because he was trying to be inclusive.
And yet,
But
every
he's-
time there's a riot over something,
But
what
it's
do they
always the
do?
orange man bad. It doesn't matter that if you look at the fact that under the Obama administration, more people were deported than under Clinton, Bush, and Trump's first term combined.
Not only that, but
But there
the
wasn't a
Obama administration
sing-
put a target on all cops' backs.
Oh, absolutely. When they let the George Floyd riots go.
No, George Floyd was Trump.
Oh, yeah, that's right. But I mean, it's...
It was Trayvon Martin. It was fuck, what's his name? The kid from St. Louis.
Yeah, I think I remember that.
That's where the hands up, don't shoot. Came
Oh, that
from.
was the one who had the Zelensky. No, not Zelensky. I know because the cops. I know who you're talking about. I think his last name was
Michael Brown.
Yeah, I believe that he was found that was not guilty. He was not guilty of murder, but it was
Ferguson, Missouri. Yeah.
I believe he was found not guilty, and it was just
The cop.
a pure. It was 100% pure accident. Because it was dark.
No, not that one. Oh, the Trayvon Martin one?
Yeah.
Yeah. But
It was dark. Yes,
And-
he had his hands up.
and the
but
thing is that Zimmerman
Zimmerman. That was
Zimmerman.
his last name.
was Hispanic.
He was Puerto Rican, yeah.
And they were saying a white guy did it.
He was far from white. You could tell he was mocha.
And then Ferguson, Missouri happened because Michael Brown took the cop's pistol.
Pistol.
Well, he didn't take it. He was trying to take
He
the
was
cop.
trying to go after it. The cop did what they're trained to do, which is to keep them from getting a hold of their weapons.
Yeah. That's when and
that's when
because
everybody
of
put
the
the
Obama
hands-
administration, racial tensions have never been higher.
Racial tensions were all but gone. 9/11 did a lot more for the country by bringing everybody together.
Well, no, racial tensions were still there.
Racial tensions are always going to be there. I actually came across a video about it earlier. And it was described in the best possible way. This lady was talking about how she's got 3 white doors in the room that she's sitting in.
No, there were body cams, just not.
They weren't mandated at the time.
They weren't mandatory at that time. Police departments could choose if they wanted them or not. But the autopsy on Michael Brown proved that the cop did a panic shot from the ground up because it was all on the right side of Michael Brown's body, like somebody on the ground shooting up and in panic mode.
And the lady described it perfectly. She goes, "I've got 3 white doors on in my room right now."
Yeah.
And she goes, "If you look through a pair of glasses that have got clear lenses, you're going to go through and see that all these doors are white. But if you put on, say, blue tinted glasses,
You're gonna see that they're all
they're
blue.
all going to go through. The doors are still white. But now you are seeing blue where there isn't any, because you have blue tinted glasses. The same goes for looking at things through the victim's lens, through the racial lens. If that's the only lens you choose to view things through, then that's all you're going to see, even when it's not actually there."
And who cries the race card more than anybody else?
Who cries it seriously? That would be Black Americans. Mexican Americans, and yes, I can actually call them Mexican Americans because they do have, most of the legal ones have dual citizenship. So yes, they are Mexican Americans. They always play it up in a joking manner. That is a Mexican's love language. At least in all the ones that I have always met, Mexican Americans have had kind of sassy racism as their love language.
You also
And when they
grew up with
bring
it.
you into it's like being in the military. It's when we stop insulting you is the problem. Whereas
I didn't get one that leans back, god damn it.
no, you didn't.
Well, that's next on the list.
But the problem is exactly.
Yeah. And where did all that money?
Oh, it goes into their pockets.
Yeah. And the thing
To
is,
fund the
all of
next
BLM,
riot. They fund all of these
all
riots.
of BLM is funded by communists. One of the leaders blew up the Capitol, put a bomb in she actually succeeded
she
in
did
bombing the Capitol building in like 83 or 86, one of the two.
BLM's only been around since 2020.
One of the founders, I said.
Oh, one of the founders. Okay, I misunderstood. But see, that's the thing, is if you always see something that isn't there, but you always see it there, yet nobody else does, I think it's time to upgrade your perspective.
And that is why I love the Army. Because I knew I was white, he knew he was black, he knew he was Mexican or Puerto Rican or something.
The military trauma bonds you, let's be honest.
We knew race didn't really mean a shit.
Because we're all trauma bonded.
At least the good ones knew that.
Oh my god, the girl who's on TikTok who's gonna find herself from an whatever the fuck she was, to a civilian
Nope,
with a
she's
with
already
dishonorable
a
discharge.
civilian. She was in the National Guard and got out.
Yes, the only way she was going to keep her honorable or even a general discharge. Because while in uniform, you are not to stand on anything for politics while in uniform. You can go and you can go in civilian clothes, go to protest, go to riot, just go to whatever, as long as you don't go through and make any connection back to the military. But the moment you make a connection back to the military, guess what? Or you go in your uniform. Guess what? That's a fast track way to go through and get yourself downgraded or promoted to civilian with a dishonorable discharge.
And actually, depending on how long she's been out,
Her going in uniform is stolen valor.
no, it's not considered stolen valor because she actually
As far
did
as I'm
serve.
concerned, it is. I'm sorry. You
Hold
don't...
on, let me finish my thought. Because you need to be real careful on your next words about her protesting because that is her right.
Yeah, it's her right. But not to go through and use her oath as a fucking shield. She clearly didn't take her oath seriously.
Right,
if
I
she's
know.
going to go through and stand
But
out there in
what I was about to
military
say,
uniform.
because there's this magical thing called the IRR. Inactive Ready Reserve. That all reservists, National Guardsmen, and active duty fall under. Depending on how long she's been out and what her contract was, she may or may not be in the IRR,
Meaning she can get reactivated.
meaning she can get called back up.
I can't. I got a medical discharge, so do you. Both of us are.
No, I actually cannot.
I said we can't because we're both medically discharged.
No, even if I wasn't. I wasn't medically discharged. I have an honorable. I don't have a medical.
Mine's an honorable discharge as well. It's just.
I'm disabled.
Yeah.
Even if I wasn't, they can't call me back up.
Because you're disabled.
Even if I wasn't disabled, they still can't call me back up.
Why?
Because I already fulfilled my IRR obligation by doing the entire 8-year contract.
Yeah, I was forced out with with an honorable but medical discharge a year or two before my contract expired. I signed up for 6.
With medical discharges, they can't call you up.
Oh yeah, I knew I wasn't gonna be able to get called back
But-
up. When people were talking about how everybody active duty could get called back up, I was like, I've been medically discharged. I'm disqualified from it.
Most reserve and guard contracts are 6 and 2.
It's 6 years reserves, 2 years active.
No. 6 years active reserve, which means you actively drill, and then 2 years in the IRR.
Oh. That's not how it was explained to us. Maybe our reservists act a little differently since we're DHS and not DoD.
Probably.
Because when I
Because
hear
even the
two,
Marine Corps is the same way.
Because when I hear 2 and 4, it's you got to do 2 years of active duty, and then 4 years as a reservist. Is how ours works. So, no, I didn't know anything about the IRR. But again,
I think
also did
because
DHS.
I was going through the comments earlier. I'm like, it was in the back of my head. I think the medication's kicking in, and my brain cells are actually firing again. But yeah, if she did 6 years and just got out within a year and a half, she may or may not still have a 6-month window where, oh really? You just went protesting in your uniform.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
You are now dishonorable discharge.
We just nope. They would actually have to call her back up and give her an Article 15 and or a court martial.
Nobody reads the fine fucking print.
Because that's either an Article 15 or a court martial offense.
Considering she was talking out against a lawful order and a constitutional order, that would not be an Article 15. That would be.
You got to remember, there's two.
I know. They would probably bring her to court martial because she did it in uniform and because she was telling the active duty who was there or the National Guard that was activated to disobey orders. So I think an Article 15 would be too much of a slap on the wrist for what she was doing.
Not unless they word it properly. Loss of rank and loss of pay. Back to a certain date.
Right.
Which means she would have to pay back all of that money that she had as an E5. Is that because I'm smart? Because I would kind of just wrap them around my hands and tell them how to break the law without telling them how to break the law and watch them break the law?
No, they would probably. No, I still think they would probably decide to make an example of her. Which
Yeah.
a court martial would be an example.
But the maximum would probably be 5 years.
It's enough to make an example.
It's, yeah, but it's honestly, it's not that big of an offense.
I know with us, you've got the captain's mass, which is our version of an Article 15. And then, of course, the court martial is the one thing that's blanket across all the branches. It's court martial.
Technically, it's called a courts martial.
Okay. You know, I wonder, and I wish Ashley was able to see this, but she's underway, so she might not be able to, she may or may not be able to join us.
I didn't tell her.
I know I told Morgan. But, I wonder if they called their Article 15 a captain's mass as well. Since they are also a seagoing service.
Yeah, they have captain's mass. And
Yeah.
then they have a court martial. Ashley told me all about it.
Yeah. Yeah, so we do share that. I was right. Because basically that comes from being on a boat when you're underway, like she is now. Don't ask us where we don't know, and even if we did know, we couldn't tell you.
She
because
said
of
southern
OPSEC.
border.
But the southern border is how vast? Very vast.
Seeing that the Bend folds out of Bremerton, I would say the Southern California border. She's probably parked right off fucking LA. Honestly, if you think about it.
Probably using the big eyes on the boats and they're eating popcorn watching the Marines go after her. Either way, it's called a captain's mass of the seagoing services because when you're underway, captain's word is law.
Yeah. And
Which
they
is
usually
still
had it
more or
at
less-
the main mast.
Yep.
Thus, captain's mast. Because in the Army, well, the Marine Corps calls it an NJP.
Yeah.
Non-judicial punishment.
Yeah, and again, court martial is the highest out of all of them. That's when you know you really fucked up.
Well, you have counseling statements. You have a company grade Article 15, which stays in your company.
Yep.
And then, by that definition, it by staying in your company means it stays within that unit. So, if you're in a company, first of the 339th, and I don't know why I picked the 339th, probably because it just rolls off. And then you transfer out to, say, first of the 506th. The Article 15 that you got in the 339th stays with the 339th.
Yeah.
However,
if requested, it can be sent over.
no. if you get a field grade, which means a field grade officer, which is a major and above,
Means you come
it
with
goes
baggage.
in your 201 file. However, a major can choose to keep it at the company level.
Right, because I mean, if you get...
Because the major is usually the XO of the battalion.
I mean, we'll use a DUI for an example. Your first one will probably be a counseling statement.
Slap on the wrist.
Because they kind of assume you just did something stupid. Especially if you've got a clean record all the way up until then. They're going to assume you just did something stupid one day. And be like, you know what? We're not going to punish you too... I mean, you still got to be punished. You still got a DUI. But... we don't expect this to happen from you again. And then...
Unless your name is Cynthia Platzer and you're on the 72nd District Court and you're handing out DUIs like they're going out of style, even if it was your first offense and then come to find out you get busted for drunk driving.
That's hilarious.
That's a judge.
Yeah. But I'm talking about at a unit level. It just kind of stays between you and your immediate supervisor. Kind of a...
Yeah.
Please don't make me write any more of these. But if you continuously to get DUIs, then you're likely to lead to...
It also depends on the MPs as well.
Let's be honest. You either get the really kind MPs who are just like, oh my god, you were dumb. Why did you do this? That you're really stupid. Just gonna let you sleep it off in the drunk tank. Then you got the ones who are unfortunately on a power trip and realize they can.
They're the most powerful person on that army post.
That anybody who wears the M and the P can, so long as they're acting
is a major
as an
pussy.
MP.
There's a reason why Motorpool got pissed off and started wearing MP patches with Motorpool underneath it to distinguish ourselves. Just to piss off the MPs, because MPs are major pussies.
Yeah, some of them are on power trips because they can tell officers while acting as an MP that no, they're the final authority and that they can actually pull people over, and you, I don't care that you're a major or a captain or a full bird colonel or even got fucking stars on you.
However, that being said, the people that they do not fuck with are the people who work on their vehicles.
No, they don't fuck with the people who feed them, and they don't fuck with the people who work on their vehicles. Or
Because
the people in charge of getting their supplies.
They have very bad days when that happens.
Shit breaks.
No, shit doesn't break. Shit just doesn't move.
No, it breaks for them, but when the mechanics have it, for some reason, we can't find a single thing wrong with the vehicle. It just must be you.
Or it just magically disappears out of their fucking parking lot. Because we have these things called recovery trucks and or wreckers that we can just,
so you just
hook up.
it.
Yes.
And repoed. This is ours now. Oh, you mean the brakes may not work all the time? But I mean...
Yeah, the brakes may not work that one time. Actually, no. There's a single wire. I think it's wire 84. Or connector 84. 83 or 84. It's been 20 years, leave me the fuck alone. That goes to the injector for the Humvee.
That if you, I'm assuming if you move it right, it's not going to work.
Well, no, you disconnect it. Because everything on the military vehicles is quick disconnect for the most part. And then you just push it back together a little bit so it looks connected. Put the hood back down, latch it back up, and walk away and watch the madness ensue. Because every other part of that vehicle has power. That vehicle will crank over. However, that Humvee engine is not going to start.
I see we've got lights. I see we got all the fucking other things that are supposed to go on. Why
'Cause
the
it will
fuck
go
isn't it going anymore?
until those two batteries fucking die. And then they will go, and then they will get another Humvee to try to jump it, and that one won't start. And they go right down the line until they get to the last Humvee.
It sounds like you've done this before. Only once or twice?
Once, twice, 5, 6 times.
Don't piss off the people who work on your vehicles. Don't piss off the people in charge of your supplies. Don't piss off the people in charge of your food.
Till they get to the last
the
Humvee and
people
they
in charge
can't
of-
find the fucking keys. Or they think they have the keys and it's not the right fucking lock. And they're like, what the fuck? So they have to call us.
Can you guys fix these? There was nothing wrong with them. What's wrong with them? Then you gaslight them so fucking hard. They think they're just crazy.
That's the whole point. Then the
Hi,
MPs
Mikey.
learn the very, very, very valuable lesson of you don't fuck with maintenance.
Exactly. Don't fuck with the motor pool. Not if you want to keep your vehicles running.
Or, you just don't reconnect the airlines for the... Me?
He was a mechanic.
Yeah, I was a mechanic.
No, I saw a TikTok clip of two of the army bands going head to head. The Screaming Eagles and then
Oh, the Alcoholics Anonymous and the Choking Chickens?
yes.
So that's the 82nd and the 101st.
Which are sadly known by very unfortunate nicknames.
Actually, they got the nickname Choking Chickens in Vietnam.
Were they actually choking chickens?
Well, there is no word for eagle in Vietnamese. So
the
that
closest they had was
rooster.
rooster.
So in Alice in Chains' song, Rooster, if you listen to it, yeah, Here Comes the Roosters. The song is actually about one of the singer's dads or uncles in Vietnam who was in the 101st.
Because eagles are not native to Vietnam, they wouldn't have a word for
And if you
eagle.
look at the patch, it actually doesn't look like...
No, it does look more like a rooster.
Yeah. And it looks like something's going in its mouth, so thus the name Choking Chickens.
I mean, it could be worse. Their patch could actually be a rooster, and then of course you've got and then you can insert all the cock jokes you want here.
And
Because
then,
that is another name for a rooster.
and then the 82nd was equivocally known as the All-American. That goes back to World War I because you had divisions formed up in areas.
Right.
How it kind of was after the Civil War, that's how they did it. However, the 82nd Division had everybody from everywhere, so it was thus an all-American division. And then when it became airborne,
It got called Alcoholics Anonymous.
no, it got nicknamed Alcoholics Anonymous.
Because everybody drank.
Yeah. Actually, if you do go to Fort, where are they at? They're not at Benning. Bragg. They're a bunch of fucking alcoholics.
If I'm not mistaken, I don't think there's much else to do at Fort Bragg.
No, not really.
Except drink. It's the reason why everybody's drunk in Russia. There isn't much else to do.
And honestly, out of both divisions, the 101st is more suited for modern warfare. Because let's pack an entire division of, like, I don't know, 60,000 guys in airplanes, fly them over an ocean that we may or may not have fucking air superiority over, and parachute them. Kick them out of a somewhat perfectly good airplane and let them float down to the ground on a military grade fucking parachute with military grade boots, military grade knees, military grade backs, military grade equipment, and military grade helmets with military grade fucking weapons, shooting at I don't know who, because they're airborne and they're just like dumbasses. They're kind of like the Marines of the Army, if you
think about it.
If you think about it, yes, because
they don't even get to pull their own chute cords. They have rip cords that pull them for them. Because
static lines.
Yes.
They're called static lines.
Yes, I forgot what the word was for a moment there.
But they're getting shot at because they're in the planes, and then they're getting shot at even though you're not supposed to because they're floating down to the ground.
And you can't even steer those parachutes.
No,
those don't have steering lines. They're not the ones that have a static line that pulls your chute for you. They're little mushrooms. That's their design, is a little mushroom. As where the ones like the Army's Golden Knights.
Or most skydivers
have got the more croissant shape.
Yeah,
that
you have a ripcord.
And you have a ripcord because you're jumping at a much higher altitude. So you have about 30 to 45 seconds of free fall.
You can...
Which is enough time for you to pull your cord.
The reason why they jump at such a low altitude is to get on the ground faster.
Exactly. I'm not...
The Germans... We use what's called a blanket method.
Yeah.
Because you're literally blanketing the ground.
Right.
I'm not... I've seen one video where the Germans are jumping out of an A400, which is their version of... Airbus's version of a C-130. And there's a good 30 seconds between each drop, and they're jumping out at like 6,000 feet instead of 500 feet.
Yeah, which is why you have the ripcords, because or the static lines, because they're immediately pulled, because you don't have the opportunity to go through.
And there's only like 1 or 2 seconds behind. Oh, we're just talking about
Today's the 250th birthday of the Army. And if you pay any attention to the leftists on TikTok, today also happens to, by astronomical sheer coincidence,
it's Trump's 79th birthday.
By 100% absolute pure coincidental, that just happens to be his birthday.
So we're talking all things Army. I was just discussing whether or not actual airborne troops are prevalent in 21st century warfare. I mean,
you can still use them.
Yes, if you're doing it in mass.
Because it's still a fantastic way to get them behind enemy lines.
Right, but that's only if you have air superiority.
Which the U.S.
and that
for the
means,
most part does have.
Well, yeah. Aircraft.
They don't have it.
But you also have to
area,
remember about AAA sites,
yeah.
which is anti-aircraft artillery, and then SAM sites, which are surface-to-air missiles. Oh, that's my boy. The mass fucking, oh my god. But as far as getting behind enemy lines, quick, fast, and hurry, and setting up shit to support the troops, the 101st has done it over and over again. The first time they actually, in a very large-scale operation, was Gulf War One. Where the Apaches had to go deep behind enemy lines, and we couldn't necessarily drive fucking trucks in. So the 101st was like, hold my beer. So a couple 100 miles behind enemy lines.
We're gonna jump out of a perfectly good helicopter.
No, they landed, and set up an aerial refueling station on the ground.
I mean, the Apache is such a quiet fucking helicopter that, again, you don't hear that bitch until you're looking it dead in the eye.
If you can see it, you're
It-
not the target.
Or you are the target, and and they wanted to make it really, really personal.
You have to get me in a plane.
I can't get him in a plane to go visit anybody, let alone get him into a into a plane to go jump out of a perfectly good military grade aircraft. It's kind of like that move. It's kind of like that saying in the in Planes 2: Fire and Rescue. I can't believe I don't understand how you guys could jump out of a perfectly good aircraft.
No,
We're not. We're jumping out of you, who is a military.
Actually, that plane was a C-119 boxcar.
Yeah, but he was in the military.
It's one of my
part of his
favorite cargo
part of his
planes.
backstory. Well, I mean, if we're gonna shove him out the plane, he would have a static line, so it would make his drop to the ground. He wouldn't feel it.
Why don't you just get me drunk on the plane?
You would just wake up in the middle of nowhere with a parachute strapped to you, and I'm like, what the fuck did I do? How drunk was I?
Just... We have 4 viewers in here.
Really?
Can't see half of them.
Well, it's because the other half is not a... Oh, do what they do to Baracus in the A-Team? Give him just enough to get him on the plane. Airborne Ranger afraid of flying because he almost fell out of a medical hospital because...
It was a Huey.
That is terrified of flying because Murdoch almost drops it.
I would be too after that, man. Shit.
But did you die?
Almost.
No, you just went skydiving without a parachute.
But no, with the 101st, yeah, the planes may be faster, but you can hear them coming. With the helicopters, you can actually fly lower and
Right.
faster, and then you literally drop in, so to speak, on the
Yeah.
enemy positions that you have to take. So air assault is probably more advantageous than actual airborne at this point in time.
Right, but again, you don't want to get rid of everything because
You never
the
know
moment
when
you get rid of it
yeah.
is the moment you're going to realize... Because how many times was the Marines disbanded before they realized maybe we
Twice.
still need... Okay, guys, we don't need you guys, bye. See, about that, we were wrong. Can you guys come back?
Because technically they disbanded the Navy as well. Because the only branch that was never disbanded was the Army.
Right. So, I mean, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, maybe we shouldn't have gotten rid of this.
Well, back then it was all about funding.
Yep.
So after the war's over, they disbanded the Marine Corps, and for a very short time, the Navy.
Right. 'cause
They
you
still had a
the,
merchant marine.
Yeah, which nowadays would fall under the Coast Guard.
The merchant marine?
Yeah.
No.
No, that actually falls under the Navy. We got I
M-
think with the Army Inner Service.
Merchant marines, as in your merchant vessels.
Yeah.
And they would have to provide their own security.
Right.
Back then, everybody had
Their own security.
their own. Most merchant ships would have all their own small arms, maybe a cannon or two to provide
Protect
for their
their
own.
stuff,
Yeah. But they kept the Army around because you had the Whiskey Rebellion in like 1801. or 1799 or
that
1801.
no country can actually hold a country without a standing army.
Right. So Washington had to march up to, I don't know.
I still feel so sorry for Washington. He started the whole French Indian War. Didn't realize
Yep.
he started the thing.
He had to march up like Pennsylvania or something to put down a whiskey rebellion over taxes, because that's the second time that's the first time we actually revolted against our own government over fucking taxes.
Right.
Washington's like, okay, I get your
hear
point.
you.
Knock this
Stop.
shit off.
Knock it off. We'll fix the taxes.
And then with westward expansion, we had to go into Michigan and take the forts, where you get Fort Pontchartrain, Delatour, which is now Fort Detroit, which is no longer there. And then we kind of had to persuade the British to get the fuck off Mackinac Island.
And by persuade, we mean aggressive negotiations?
They never left. No, wait, that was 1812 where they fired it. Took it over without a shot. And then, wow, that was also the start of the fucking Indian Wars.
Oh.
249 years of being a country, no, there hasn't been a single year of peace.
Where we haven't done something.
Because we've been fighting either amongst ourselves, Native Americans, Mexicans, or fucking the rest of the fucking world.
Well, you can still keep us on. You can still listen to us. You just don't have to participate in the chat. You still listen. I mean, the U.S. will never see peace, unfortunately.
Because, I mean, let's look up the history of the U.S. Army here for a second. Where is it?
I don't know.
Oh, don't do that. It hurts.
You know, shit, Sherlock.
I don't want GoArmy.com. There we go. So, American Revolutionary Wars from 75 to 83. And we're
Dude, the Continental Army.
engagement C list. Revolutionary War.
C-list.
War of 1812, Mexican-American War, Civil War, Indian War, Spanish-American War, China Relief Expedition, Philippine-American War, Mexican Expedition, World War I, Russian Civil War, Bonus Army Suppression.
Bonus Army?
That was when MacArthur rolled tanks through D.C. to get rid of the Bonus Army because they were promised bonuses during World War I and never received it.
Huh.
I'll touch on that. World War II, Korean War, 1958 Lebanon crisis, Vietnam War, Dominican Civil War, Korean DMZ conflict. I wonder what that was about. Invasion of
the one that was over a fucking tree.
Invasion of Grenada, Invasion of Panama, Somali Civil War, Persian Gulf War, Kosovo War, Global War on Terrorism, War in Afghanistan, War in Iraq, Operation Inherent Resolve, Battle of Kasham.
LA 2025.
We're not there yet. Korean DMZ conflict, also referred as the Second Korean War by some, was a series of low-level armed clashes between North Korean forces and the forces of South Korea and the United States, largely occurring between 1966 and 1969 along the Korean DMZ.
And there was a tree involved in one of those clashes because the U.S. wanted to cut the tree down because it was blocking the view. And then the Koreans decided, or the North Koreans decided, that that tree was all of a sudden sacred.
I'm trying to get to it.
Which I still find absolutely hilarious. This is a sacred tree.
No, this is actually something different.
Oh, shit.
This has actually something to do with paragraph 13D of the Korean Armistice Agreement.
Yeah.
Yeah, nope. So the bonus army suppression, 32. It was 1932.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know about that. So why were they promised bonuses but then never given them?
The bonus army was a group of 43,000 demonstrators, 17,000 veterans of U.S. involvement in World War I, their families, and affiliated groups who gathered in Washington, D.C. in mid-1932 to demand early cash redemption of their service bonus certificates. Organizers called the demonstrators the Bonus Expeditionary Force to echo the name of World War I's American Expeditionary Forces, while the media referred to them as the Bonus Army or Bonus Marchers. It's in the Great Depression. Origin of military bonuses. Blah, blah, blah. I don't want to know. Before World War I, the soldiers' military service bonus, adjusted for rank, was land and money. The Continental... God damn it.
So basically, they wanted the money that they were promised during the Great Depression after the economy collapsed.
Yeah.
But since the economy collapsed, it couldn't be paid out.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So it wasn't that they weren't going to get it because they did something wrong. They weren't going to get it because the economy literally collapsed.
Oh, it was land, too.
Gotcha.
The bonus also applied to veterans of any Indian war. The provision of land eventually came to a major political issue, particularly in Tennessee, where almost 40% of arable land had been given to veterans as part of their bonus. By 1860, 73.5 million acres had been issued, and lack of available arable land led to the program's abandonment and replacing it with a cash-only system. Okay, so after 1860 was cash only. Breaking with tradition, the veterans of the Spanish-American War did not receive a bonus, and after World War I, that became a political matter when they received only a $60 bonus. That's $1,090 in today's money. The American Legion, created in 1919, led a political movement for an additional bonus. On May 15, 1924, President Calvin Coolidge vetoed a bill granting bonuses to veterans of World War I, saying patriotism, it's my teeth,
I know.
bought and paid for is not patriotism. However, the bonus bill was endorsed by Henry Cabot Lodge and Charles Curtis. Congress overrode Coolidge's veto of the bonus bill, enacting the World War Adjusted Compensation Act. Each veteran was to receive $1 for each day of domestic service, up to a maximum of $500. That's $9,200 in 2024's money. And $1.25 for each day of overseas service, up to a maximum of $625. That's $11,740 in today's money. Deducted from this was $60 for the 60 they received upon discharge. Amounts of $50 or less were immediately paid. All other amounts were issued as certificate of service maturing in 20 years. There were 3.6 million adjusted service certificates issued with a combined face value of $3.64 billion, which is $67 billion today in 2023. Congress established a trust fund to receive 20 annual payments of $112 million that, with interest, would finance the 1945 disbursement of the $3.638 billion for the veterans. Meanwhile, veterans could borrow up to 22.5% of their certificate's face value from the fund, but in 1931, because of the Great Depression, Congress increased the maximum value of such loans to 50% of their certificate's face value. Although there was congressional support for the immediate redemption of the military service certificates, Hoover and Republican congressmen opposed such action and reasoned that the government would have to increase taxes to cover the cost of the payout, so any potential economic recovery would be slowed. The VFW continued to press the federal government to allow early redemption of military service certificates. In January of 1932, a march of 25,000 unemployed Pennsylvania, dubbed Cox's Army, that's COX, okay, had marched on D.C., the largest demonstration to date in the nation's capital, setting a precedent for future marches by the unemployed. And then it basically they set up camp, and they were promised money that they could borrow up to 50% of their certificate.
But because the economy collapsed, they couldn't actually.
Well, even after the economy collapsed, because you could borrow up to 22.5% of that certificate. And then once the Great Depression hit, Congress is like, well, we still have to take care of the veterans. They can borrow up to 50%. Then they're like, well, that's great and all. I support that. But in order for you to do that, I'm going to have to raise taxes in order to pay for all this shit.
And there are people who can't pay the taxes already.
Yeah.
But then again, if you got the super fucking rich to get off their lazy asses and actually, pay shit out, they could have done it. But the super rich don't give up their fucking money for nobody in the thing unless it's for themselves.
Well, that's yes and no.
There are some, yes, that would be like, done, absolutely. But
Even
then there are some that are like...
Even today, the super rich are taxed beyond belief, and it's still not helping anything out.
Because it's not actually going to their taxes, it's going to other billionaires.
She's a bitch. Morgan.
Why? I know, I messaged her earlier. She didn't say anything. Look, a hush. You don't even know why we're barking. She can't hit you, but I can.
I'm like, and I just got slapped. Well, no, because all the economists that's the word I'm looking for. Economists say that even if you tax the rich at 100% and take away all their money, it's not going to solve the problem in the long run.
No.
So, don't do it. Because if I was super rich, if I was like a Jeff Bezos, an Elon Musk, or anybody like that, do you know where I'm not going to put my money for banking?
In the government?
I'm not going to have any of my money in any banking institution in the United States.
No,
because they'll tax.
That's what the Swiss bank accounts
Grand Cayman, Swiss, you name it. Because it's going to accumulate interest. And you can just live off the fucking interest. Because that's what a lot of billionaires do.
It reminds me of a hilarious story. It was talking about Batman and about how Bruce Wayne in the DC universe is one of the richest men alive. But he doesn't want to be. It's an AU, but it's hilarious. So he goes through and he pours his own personal money into his companies. He gives more than livable wages for his staff. He updates everything and does all the stuff that everybody has deemed too expensive in an attempt to go through and burn through the cash. Problem is, it generates more, so he just gets more money. So he's like, fuck, how do I get rid of this? Oh, I know. I'll just fix all of Gotham. Fuck, I'm making even more money. And he's making other billionaires look bad because they're saying that they can't pay their... that he's setting a too high of a cost, a too high of a precedent, by going through and showing that these changes are well within a billionaire's ability to go through and actually make the changes for his staff, because he gives them very generous vacation packages, bonuses, even the lowliest of the lowest employees making fucking bank, because he does not want to be the richest man. The problem is that he forgot.
The more you invest,
the more you make. So he's sitting there panicking, trying to figure out how to dump all this cash without doing anything illegal, because he's doing it legally. And then he just kind of sits there and even Alfred's like,
not working, is it, Master Wayne?
You're trying to get rid of your money by being a generous boss. But now you have employees that are working harder for you.
Yep.
You've cleaned up the environment, which has now made Ivy happy.
Less bad guys.
So you now have Ivy, who, let's be honest, Ivy wasn't really a bad guy. She was just an extreme environmentalist.
I lost my train of thought.
I know. And so you got him. They're going through it. He's like, oh my god, I don't want to be the richest man. Well, so he starts buying up houses and turning them into homeless shelters. And
the fuck was I gonna say?
You were talking about how not wanting to put your money in the U.S. bank accounts at all. And you're gonna put
all I know. I was going to talk about now because I want to put something to rest. Because kind of reminds me of the Union story.
But it's like all they wanted to do is, see, he ends up becoming,
Yeah, I don't know where it's at.
It wasn't here. Oh, it's back here. So he ends up becoming the number one most hated man in Gotham by the other people in his social circle, because he's, again, just gone through and has made all these other billionaire companies look like the scumbags they actually are. And his competitors are now going after Batman's villains to go after Bruce Wayne, but even they're not really doing anything, because it's like there's nothing much we can do. Because most of them already know that Bruce Wayne is Batman, and you get rid of Bruce Wayne, and all of a sudden Batman doesn't have a reason to stick around anymore. And keep his little moral compass.
I find it funny that everybody's... They think unions are the lifeline of America. It wasn't the unions who gave you the 8-hour workday and paid vacations. It was actually Henry fucking Ford.
Yeah.
Henry Ford hated unions because they were communist.
Unions have their place in certain industries. Because there are certain industries where, yes, the employees need protection from their employers. That's a given. The restaurants need unions.
You know who needs a union? That should be in the union?
Hmm.
Mechanics.
Yes, mechanics need a union.
If anybody is defined by the UAW, it's the guys who actually fix the fucking cars.
Right.
You know why mechanics aren't in the UAW?
Why?
Because we know all the dirty secrets.
Right.
Because think about it. Who actually has to fix all the engineers' fuck-ups?
Mechanics.
Who knows how to fix those cars better and make them run better than what the engineers actually fucking designed them to do?
Mechanics.
That is why they won't let mechanics in the UAW, because then they have to get paid at UAW wages and not I forgot what it God damn it, it's on the tip of my tongue. It's the pay scale mechanics they're how they're paid by the job.
Right.
And that's why a lot of mechanics are leaving the industry, because I just saw a video where
Because there's no protection for them.
not only that, but you have to be a mechanic, an electrician, an IT guy, an IT repairman. You have to do 5 or 6 different things nowadays just to fix a fucking car. And honestly, mechanics are getting fucking tired of it.
Again, I'm convinced somewhere way back when, a mechanic fucked an engineer's wife, and she left him. And that's why engineers hate mechanics.
The engineers that used to design the cars knew everything there was to know about that car and how it ran.
Right.
Because they went home and worked on those same exact fucking cars.
Right. I mean,
An engineer designing a headlight has no idea how that headlight works. Has no idea how the rest of that automobile works. He just knows.
It's just like working with... the parallel to that is architects and construction. Architects have got these big, beautiful, elaborate buildings and drawings. But a lot of them don't understand that when it comes to actually putting the shit together,
they have to trust the structural engineers and the construction guys.
So when when a construction worker says, we can't do that because of XYZ, the architects get pissed off. And same with a mechanic going into a automotive engineer going, oil's got to be replaced every 3,000, 6,000 miles. Or every 3 to 6 months, depending on how often you use your vehicle.
But if they would actually listen to us, especially on how they build the engines and what parts to fucking use,
Everything
we
would
could
go a lot slower.
hey, stop full synthetic, use this oil filter brand with this car, with this engine, with this oil. Instead of 3,000 miles, this 6,000, you can go 6 to 12.
Right.
Hey, use this air intake style, and then this exhaust style. Get rid of the catalytic converters and the fucking O2 sensors, because we don't have leaded fucking gasoline anymore.
Yeah, we don't have leaded gas anymore, so a lot of the stuff is obsolete.
Get rid of all the EPA shit that you put on the cars that actually chokes the engines out and makes them less fuel efficient.
Right.
And I will die on this fucking hill. All the emissions controls that they throw in these cars are worse for the environment than what's in it. Get rid of the fucking automatic start-stop.
Yeah, we were talking about this yesterday. Again,
get rid of the active fuel management.
If you, like I said yesterday, if you want to keep that stupid auto stop,
make it an option.
It has, or give it a reasonable timer. Not every single time you hit the fucking brake. Because it
doesn't kill the engine every time you hit the brake.
The one that I was in did. Every single time the car came to a complete stop, the engine turned off.
So it's different with models and stuff like that. Because with the Jeeps, if you sit at a light at a certain period of time, it shuts it off.
That's what I'm saying. Give it a reasonable
That's
time.
actually what it was meant for high traffic areas like New York,
LA,
Florida, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Where they have the traffic jams.
If you're sitting someplace for 5-10 minutes, yeah, go ahead and cut the engine, because if you're sitting somewhere for about 5-10 minutes and you know nothing's going to be going for a while, how many times have you been at a train track and just turned your vehicle off?
Plenty of times.
Because you can see that train's going
But
like
that's
2
the
miles
difference
an hour.
between people who live in cities and people who live up here. Because we know if we're going to be sitting there a while
We just cut our engine.
and roll down the windows. Unless it's
throw it
hot and
apart.
humid and we're going to keep them on for the AC.
We'll throw it in park first, just so we don't have to keep holding the fucking brake.
Yeah.
But, like, we were at a train the other day where it was going, it was very obviously slowing down. You don't know how long that train is. You might as well throw it in fucking park.
Yep.
And you might as well turn the fucking vehicle off because you're going to be there for a while. Because it's going maybe a mile an hour.
It was going walking pace, which is 3.5 miles an hour.
Yeah. So.
Because it was actually pulling into the rail
Yeah,
yard.
it was pulling into the depot.
But
you don't know how long that train is, so you might as well just turn your engine off at that point.
well, it was kind of warm that day, so we kept it running with the AC on.
Yeah, because I think we had. No, we didn't have the dogs.
No.
No, but we could also see the end of the train at that point.
Yeah.
Too, so there was no point in killing the engine and just throw it apart. But if you can't see the end of the train, then yeah, you're going to turn it off.
Because LA has these big 8, 10, 12 lane highways.
Yet they still backed up all to hell.
Which makes no fucking sense. The whole reason for the highway system was for movement of military vehicles and evacuations.
Yep.
In the event of nuclear warfare. What is the point of having all these big 8-lane highways that you redo every fucking year? Because I know LA is just like Michigan, where they have summer in construction, whereas we have winter in construction.
Yeah.
So you're telling me all the Hollywood stars that you tax to death because they're in that tax bracket, you can't get your fucking road system fixed?
Oh no, their road system's perfectly fine. The only problem is they run into the same issue they have here. You have these HOV lanes that they close 90% of the time.
That's what the carpool lanes?
I think that's what an HOV lane is.
I don't know. We actually don't have them up here.
There's HOV lanes, there's high...
Oh, wait, no, we do, but nobody actually pays attention to it on 75.
You, like, heading down to Ann Arbor, you have that lane
that's always closed.
That's always closed, except for during high traffic times. But the problem is, you create high traffic volume because you're closing a lane. Like, this isn't we need to go through and have everybody funnel into a little one lane only because you're crossing a border. There is a 16-lane highway in China that at some point in time on that highway, all 16 of those lanes converge into one lane.
Yeah.
For some ungodly reason. And it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it does. The Communist Party built it. That's all you need to know.
And it's like, when it comes to like 90% of everything when it comes to traffic, because they go through and they build these intricate highways. You've got spaghetti bowl after spaghetti bowl of highways. Yet they're always crowded. Always.
And then you get the people in the left lane doing 10 under the speed limit, holding everybody up.
Right. And then you've got people who are... You've got trucks that are governed to a certain speed, depending on
The
Depending on the
semis.
semi,
Yeah.
depending on the semi depends on whether or not they can go up to 70 miles an hour,
Nope.
or if they're
It depends on
governed
the company.
or it's governed
Werner,
at
I know for a
65.
fact Werner
Is
is at
70.
65.
It's up to 70.
Oh, it is.
My dad drives for them. He can go 75 or he can go 70
Wow, they upped the speed on their trucks.
by 5 miles an hour.
And then you get the owner operators who have no governors that will do 120 plus, carrying 80,000 pounds.
Right. So you could solve a lot of traffic issues by making a semi-only lanes, since they have to continuously get on and off because of way stations. If the way station's open, they have to get off at that way station. If it's closed, they can keep going. At least that's how it was explained to me.
Or if they have Easy Pass, they just blow right on through.
I'm guessing you know that from experience.
Yeah. Easy Pass is great.
But if you take semis and give them their own lane, then you can take their governing off of them. Because you won't have to worry about fucking idiot little cars getting in their way.
No, you still will, because people will always be idiots.
In which case, that's on them. They shouldn't be in that lane in the first place. Then if you put the concrete dividers up, like how you have...
Oh, the K-rails, the Jersey
Yeah.
barriers. So you actually widen all the freeways.
Yeah, widen other freeways,
And make
give
semis their own two or three lanes.
Yep, their own 2 or 3 lanes with their own entrances and their own exits. Now, when it comes to regular roads, they're still going to have to deal with cars. But on the highways
That's going to be hard on the
themselves-
highways, because you got to remember, in certain areas, trucks have to get off, no matter where. Think Family Dollar accounts.
Right, that's why they would have their own entrance and their exits.
That's a lot of logistical issues.
But that's more for, I gotta go from California to New York.
So why
For
not
those who
just build an interstate system for the trucks?
Yeah.
But then you're wasting trillions of dollars on a whole new interstate system that's built specifically for semis. And the semis will eventually have to get back on the regular interstates to travel in the inner cities.
Well, locals such as Family Dollar, Dollar Tree, and things like that, they have their own inner city fleets. And everything is transported by rails if it has to go to a different thing.
Nope.
No, that's how you could solve things like...
So you want more box trucks. Straight trucks.
Yeah.
Because a lot of those semi trucks deliver to multiple Family Dollars.
Right. I'm aware of that.
It's more economical to throw everything into a 53-foot trailer and have one truck drive to multiple stores than it is to
within the same city, yeah.
drive
That's what I'm
multiple
saying.
box trucks.
No, I'm saying, again, the whole...
Right.
You get
But what
one or
I'm
two,
saying is,
depending on the size of the city.
how are you going to incorporate and differentiate on the highway system if you build two different interstate systems? One dedicated for semis and then one dedicated for small cars. Because eventually, at some point in time and point or another, they're going to have to overlap.
I'm aware of that.
Because the math ain't mathin'.
All
You
I'm
got my
saying
brain
is-
going.
All I'm saying is take what is existing.
And widen it.
And widen it.
Okay.
And then just like you have certain lanes designated at certain like everybody
Because you're going to have stretches. Like on 69, it wouldn't necessarily work because there are stretches where there's exit after exit after exit where the trucks have to get off.
right. I'm talking. I'm not talking about in the cities. That there's very little you could do with that. I'm talking about.
Oh, you moved the mouse.
Yeah.
So you're talking more or less in the wide open ranges.
Right.
So like that stretch between Flint and Lansing, you could almost do it.
Right, and that way you could have the trucks going how they need, and it would. You could set it up similar to the way it would be at like a border patrol checkpoint, or some or like a toll booth type checkpoint where you've got lanes that are cars only, and then semi trucks. And that way, if you're caught in the lane that's designated for a semi truck where there is no reason for you to be there, then you can start issuing tickets for that, because that would take a lot of stress off of semi truck drivers, because not only do they have to be aware of what's going on with their own truck, they also got to be aware of dumb fucking idiots who think that they can stop on a fucking dime. So if you...
So instead of being 2 lanes, which is what most freeways are, you would have to widen to 4 lanes all the way across.
3 or 4, yeah.
Because how it usually goes is that the right lane is reserved for semi-trucks and people who go slow. Because the sign says keep right unless passing.
Is what I'm thinking about.
I know what you're saying. I'm just playing devil's advocate.
I know. Put this on.
You just flashed the entire camera.
I do not care. There's only one person watching anyway.
Hi, whoever's watching.
Like, you would have... This lane would be for... trucks, and then you would have... this lane for your slow drivers. And then you would have this lane for everyone else.
But you would have to keep all that open, because this is your median over here, which is the ditch, and then this is your shoulder.
Right.
Because
I mean, yeah, you would still be able to go in between all of them if you need to get off. But this way, trucks aren't stuck behind these slow drivers.
So you would ever have the trucks in the far left lane, slow ass motherfuckers in the center, and then fast on the right.
Right.
However,
that way the trucks, if they ever have to ditch, it's easier for them to ditch without having to worry about...
There's a reason why the shoulders are on the right.
I'm aware of that. But I'm talking about these guys. The only things that these guys would have to worry about would be taking out another person's train.
Right.
And not some dumb, slow-ass motherfucker in front of them.
But if this is the fast lane, where's all the exits?
I have been to places where exits have been on the right as well.
Right. But 9 times out of 10, you mean on the left.
No. I have been to places where there has been exits on the right.
All the exits are on the right.
Or on the left, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I've got my left and right.
The way it's set up on a 3-lane highway is actually how it is right now. The trucks actually get the 2 lanes. Because that center lane is where the trucks are allowed to pass another truck. Because everybody knows the right lane is the slow lane and the semi lane. Center lane's for passing, and then obviously the left lane is the Indy 500 lane.
That lane is for ticket money.
Yeah.
Essentially is what I've heard it called.
Because it's actually easier to see out of your left mirror than
Right.
it is the right mirror. Okay. You send it to her, not me.
Yeah, she sent it to me.
I can't read it. It's on her phone. I don't have her phone. What's wrong with you?
The Facebook post.
But you just basically described our highway system just opposite of what we do now. Well, it's not like you can't add me.
All it does is bring me to. It just brings me to Facebook. It doesn't actually let me see the post. Love.
Good one.
Yeah, it's. Yeah. But yeah, no, because that would be your best way to do it, because then you could go through and, like I said, you could have your
Until the
here.
semis need to get off and everything's on the right.
Well, you could have your trucks here, they could have their exits on the left.
That's a nightmare. You would have to revamp the entire interstate system.
It's better than them doing construction on the same fucking stretch of fucking road.
They're gonna do that anyways, because how do you think the construction monies and the labor unions get their freaking money?
Because that would actually... Do you know how many more jobs revamping and making a special truck lane would bring in?
So you make everything 3 to 4 lanes across, but you keep everything on the way it is. Basically. You're just expanding the highway.
Yeah, it needs to be done in a lot of places anyway.
Yeah, but you don't move your exits.
Good.
All exits are on the right. Well, not all of them, but 9 times out of 10, all the exits are on the right because the driver's on the left, and that's where you get the most visibility out of your freaking rear view mirrors. Because you
Okay.
turn around like that, all I can see. What am I reading?
You don't have to. Ugh. I was just sneezing.
I'm going to read this out loud.
Okay, you can read it out loud.
So let's get something straight. Y'all make it so hard not to stay quiet and just go about my business. This parade has really unmasked a lot in people. When I served, which means raising your hand, your right hand, and committing to dying for your country if necessary, I never knew so many Americans were so ungrateful. I assume they meant it when they said thank you for your service, to which I always reply it was my honor. The parade is the U.S. Army's 250th anniversary Grand Military Parade. It celebrates the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Army, founded on June 14th, 1775, by the Second Continental Congress as the Continental Army. Stop playing with it. It's driving me nuts. Now, because Trump, they would want to deny us a celebration of 250 years protecting this nation. I am so sorry to all of you moronic extremists that June 14th was around before Trump happened to be born on that day. Yeah. That America has celebrated this day for 171 years through 7 major conflicts, including 2 world wars before Trump was even born. Over 500,000 Army soldiers have never come home to their families for this country. Not for Trump. For you, for all of you. A total of 1.35 million service members across all branches have died for the people of this country. This parade, the celebration of 250 years of the United States Army, isn't just about military might. It's about heritage. It's about sacrifice. It's about generations of men and women who raised their right hand knowing full well they may never come home the same or at all. Just over 6% of Americans shoulder the responsibility of defending the rights and freedoms that the other 94% enjoy daily. That includes the freedom to speak your mind, even if what you say is ignorant, disrespectful, or completely out of touch with the reality of what these service members endure. You want to mock a tribute to our military? You want to call the soldiers terrifying or dangerous? Fine, that's your right. But here's the truth. You only have that right because of them. The celebration honored those who stormed the beaches and crossed deserts. Those who came home missing limbs, battling trauma, and mourning the brothers and sisters they lost. It's for the Gold Star families who received a folded flag instead of a welcome home hug. And still, through all of that, many of them would do it again, not for recognition, but because they believe in something greater than themselves. So no, this isn't about glorifying war. It's about recognizing courage. It's about honoring heritage. It's about remembering that freedom has a cost, and it's been paid by people far braver than the ones tweeting hot takes from behind a screen saying "fuck America" while they enjoy the freedom of their Uber Eats and their soy milk lattes. So if you don't want to clap, don't. But don't you dare disrespect the reason you even get to sit in that seat in the first place. Because this celebration isn't just for those who agree with it. It's for everyone, including those who oppose it. But it is also so sad that the angry, delusional left has made all patriotic celebrations toxic. So if you're not here to honor sacrifice, legacy, and service, sit down, shut the fuck up, and let real Americans be proud.
That was my aunt sent me that, and that was told to her by an Army veteran.
And I agree with him 100%.
Because if it wasn't for the Army, if it wasn't for the Navy, if it wasn't for the Marines, if it wasn't for the Air Force, then in some ways the Coast Guard.
If you've noticed that every other branch has a saying in Latin. Always prepared, always faithful, always underway. You know what the Army's is? It's in plain fucking English.
Get drunk, fuck everything up?
Nope. This will defend. There is... I researched it. It's like, okay, well, if the Marines have Semper Fidelis, Coast Guard has Semper Paratus, Navy is Semper something or another, along the same lines of always underway or something like that. Air Force even has something in Latin. And they're the youngest. Well, second youngest. Even the Space Force has something in Latin. Only one that never came up with a Latin saying is the United States Army, because it's short, sweet, and to the fucking point. This will defend.
And unfortunately, a lot of the people, because there are some people on the right, they're just not as vocal about it, who are against a lot of what's going on. But let's be honest, if it wasn't for the Army, the Navy, the Coast Guard, the Marines, the Air Force, can't say anything about the Space Force because they ain't done shit yet.
That you know of.
They're glorified NASA.
No.
They're also glorified Air Force.
They're glorified Air Force.
They're
actually Starfleet. Their uniforms are from fucking Starfleet. I hate to say it.
They're what happened when NASA and the Air Force got in bed together.
But anyways, if it wasn't for the United States military...
The armed services. Well, hello! I was waiting to see how long it was going to take you to join us.
What kind of food you get?
If it wasn't for the United States Armed Forces, you wouldn't be allowed to sit on
Sit there and talk
TikTok
shit.
and Instagram and Twitter and go through and say fuck the president and oh shit.
Ah!
Stand by.
Fuck, that hurt. Oh. That wasn't my ear, that was my jaw.
Sorry. I had to take a quick break because what was supposed he's okay. What was supposed to be funny, I ended up hitting right here.
Right here in my jaw.
Just right. To the point where I accidentally hurt him. I apologize for that. Anyway, back to what we were saying. If it wasn't for the armed services, you would not be able to sit on your TikTok and Twitter and anything like that and saying fuck the USA and all that. Because then
Semper Fortis. Always courageous. It was gonna bug the shit out of me until I found
Air
out.
Force?
No, that's the Navy.
Ah. You wouldn't be able to say that because you'd be whisked away by a secret police. We don't have that here. We also don't have generational imprisonment. We all know what country has that.
Actually, the Air Force is pretty gay.
No shit.
Aim high, fly, fight, win, integrity first, service before self, excellence in all we do. That's because, I mean, you guys are literally an offshoot of the fucking army, so I don't want to hear it.
Well, we're kind of talking about the Army's 250th, which I know has probably kept you pretty busy. And we're just kind of talking in general, but we just got finished reading a post that my aunt had found on Facebook that was posted on that was talking about how today, by again sheer fucking coincidence, happens to be Donald Trump's 79th birthday.
The Space Force has a better saying than the fucking Air Force. Semper Supra. Always above. Which makes absolute perfect fucking sense. At least the armies make sense. This will defend. You're goddamn right. We're going to defend this country. Aim
All
high.
the others make sense.
Fly high. Fight, win. Yeah, no shit. You're in the fucking Air Force. Come up
You're
with something cool. How about warheads on fucking foreheads? Can we change the Air Force's slogan to warheads on fucking foreheads? Because that makes more fucking sense for the goddamn Air Force.
Always
Proof.
prepared
Proof.
is ours.
Proof that they're nothing but a goddamn corporation. Dumbass fucking slogan.
You know what, the Marines being called devil dogs and they're saying, translating to always faithful, makes so much sense.
Mind you, they didn't get the nickname Tufelhunden, which comes out to Devil Dog, until 1917.
I know.
And it was not by the Germans, it was by the fucking Prussians. Which is a very big difference in fighting styles at that time, because there was still a fucking Prussia.
Right, but
My tism is going off.
what I was saying is, if you look at it now that they have the name Devil Dogs, and their motto is always faithful, it kind of makes them sound like rabid German Shepherds. Or Belgian Malinois.
Do you even know what the Marine Corps mascot is?
I believe it's a bulldog.
Yes, it is a French bulldog. No, I'm not kidding. It
I know.
Yeah, but because they earned their nickname Devil Dog
Because
in
of that.
France,
Yeah.
and if you actually do look,
Yeah, I'm aware of all that. But
I think it's a French bulldog.
I don't really see bulldog. I see more of a rabid German Shepherd or a rabid Belgian Malinois.
No, it's an English bulldog. Not a French one. It's bigger. Yeah, it's because they look.
It's got the bully.
Yeah.
It's got the bully stance.
Yeah.
I believe the English bulldog is actually classified as a bully breed because of its stance. But yeah, see, we were kind of talking about that, and then we were talking about how, excuse me, about how the left is going fucking absolutely apeshit because, and they're calling today No King Day because 79 years ago Donald Trump was born.
The last time we had a king was in 1775.
But 250 years ago, the United States Army was made. And I do believe the U.S. Army gets to go through and be like, nah, bitch, we had it first.
Yes.
So,
yes, we do. Why? Because we're
the
the
US
oldest.
Had it first.
Well, no, we're the oldest. The Army is the oldest branch. Then the Navy, and then the fucking Marines.
Yep. And then...
And it's about time that the Army gets recognized for being the oldest, because every goddamn year. Every
the Marines
fucking
are being
year.
told, this is
It's November 10th! Hoorah, hoorah, Marine Corps, Marine Corps, Marine Corps!
We're gonna get drunk, party, pass
Oh my
out,
God,
and
I
then we're
hate
gonna do it all
Marines.
again the next day.
I love my Marines, but I hate them at the same fucking time. It's like, yes, you're a Marine. Have a box of crayons, sit down, shut the fuck up, and have a snack.
I came across a video on TikTok, not yesterday, but the day before, when people are asking about what exactly the Marines are going to do to the civilians down in LA. And the guy went there and said, first off, you're going to notice all your crayons are disappearing. So your crayons are gone. Then you're going to notice all of a sudden all of your alcohol is gone. Because it has happened before.
I wonder if this time the police remember the 92 LA riots.
And remember that cover me does not mean the same thing.
Do not ever say cover me to anybody in the United States military, because our definition of cover me is, hey, you see that building? Delete it.
I don't want that building there no more.
You see that direction? Get rid of it.
And then they went there and they said that you're going to notice all your alcohol is gone. Then you're going to notice all your single women are gone.
Oh, they're there for the big booty Latina women. Don't you know that? That's the whole reason why he deployed them. It's like there's a bunch of 2-7 Marines that are single.
Maybe if I
There's
get
big
29
booty-
pounds laid, they'll chill the fuck out.
But then they have to take them back to 29 palms. That's the catch.
You don't have a vacation for a little bit. It's a paid vacation. It's a working vacation.
It pretty much is. And then, speaking of vacations, I love it when the left is using pictures of service members sleeping in buildings all over the ground. It's like, do you not realize that's actually a luxury for us? Especially the Army and especially the fucking Marines.
The funniest video that I have come across was this wife. She was sharing her husband in her house. He's been out of the Marine Corps for 19 years. He was a 29 Paul Marine.
And he's sleeping on the floor.
And he's curled up with a jacket tucked under his hood, or under his head, out fucking cold.
Yep.
And she's like, he's been out 19 years. And I still find him like this. I have found you willingly curled up on the floor, taking a nap.
Huh.
So I think you might have been drinking at that point in time
Probably.
as well. But probably.
And then he's going to buy a Challenger at 35% interest.
Because that's what they fucking do.
Either a Challenger, a Charger, or a fucking Camaro.
And they won't be able to take to their next duty station because their next duty station will be overseas.
Oh yeah, by the way, we're shipping you out to Okinawa.
Come again?
And then he's gonna learn what Japanese women are like. And he's like, I'm divorcing this fucking Latino bitch.
But I mean, it's. But it's like I don't understand what the left is never going to understand because they absolutely refuse to understand.
It's
Is
my
that the
chair, you
only
fucking retard.
reason why you were able to do what you are doing is because we do have the First Amendment.
Democrats just hate America.
What's hilarious is, again, the best way to describe the first two amendments, the funniest way I've ever seen it described was we got the First Amendment and all the freedoms that comes with that. Then we got the Second Amendment just in case the First Amendment doesn't work out.
Yeah, pretty much. And they're trying really hard to get rid of the Second Amendment
So that they can get rid of the first.
And then
Because you got to
the
get
rest.
rid of two before you get rid of one.
Yeah.
Because two actually allows us to go through and say, no, fuck you, because two protects one.
Hey, since you're on here now, can you actually discuss stuff?
I highly doubt it. Excuse you.
I just heard a growl.
That was a burp, actually, and that was from Indy. Indy just burped. But, I mean...
Is she paying attention? Come on, type faster. Tippity typey. Tippity typey. Wow, that microphone picks up a lot of shit.
Yeah, it's a very sensitive microphone. That's why I'm sitting as far back as I
I
am.
might have to move it to that end of the table. Because I'm trying to talk quietly. Boom, boom. Boom, boom. Boom, boom. Boom, boom. Boom, boom.
But yeah, I know you hate the Army's song, but we should play it at least once.
I'm not playing that fucking song.
Because the Army's the only one that doesn't have any saying in Latin. It doesn't have a song.
No, the Air Force doesn't have to say anything Latin.
But the Air Force has got kind of a hymn. I think there's just a hymn.
No, it's a song.
The only two that don't have a saying in Latin are the only two that don't have a hymn. Or a drinking song. But if you were on our broadcast yesterday, you would have heard that they were talking, that him and Anthony were talking about psychological warfare with LA. But what are you staring at so intently?
Fighter F-15CD, F-15E, F-15EX. I love all the variants of the F-16, by the way. F-16C/D/CG/DG/CJ/CJ F-22A and F-35A.
It's because the 16 won't die.
It's because it's all avionics packages.
It won't die. Just like the buff, it won't die. Because it is so well able to be adapted for so many different things.
So attack. A-10, A-29, AC-130J, MQ-9A, and OA-1K. So they got attack aircraft, right? Bomber. B-1B, B-2A, B-52H. 3.
And that's all the second largest Air Force?
Air Force is the largest Air Force.
I was talking about the Army.
No, this is the second largest Air Force in the world is the Navy. Then it's the Marine Corps. Or
It's the Air Force.
Air Force, Navy, Army, Marine Corps.
So you're talking about the third largest Air Force, or are you talking about the first largest Air Force?
Our Air Force, honey. bomber aircraft: B-1B, B-2A, and B-52H. As in, we only have 3 strategic bombers, and this isn't even counting the B-21 that's coming out.
The boner. Because somebody managed to get it called the boner. Yeah, I wonder when all that stuff is supposed to come in.
I don't know. So, what does the Army have, actually?
That wouldn't be displayed on the.
Yeah, it would. As of fiscal year 2022, the regular Army was 480,893 soldiers. The Army National Guard had 336,129 soldiers, and the reserves had 188,703. The combined component strength of the U.S. Army was 1,005,725 soldiers.
Aren't all the rotary wing attack helicopters, don't they all belong to the Army and Marines? Like, I don't think any of them actually go to the air. I mean specifically attack helicopters, i.e. the Apache.
The Army has the Apache and Marines have the Cobra.
Yeah.
The Air Force doesn't fly attack helicopters.
Yeah, that's what I was making sure. Because the Black Hawk, I believe, is for all 3 of those.
I'm trying to see how many vehicles they have.
Oh, but the actual attack helicopters, the Apache and the Cobra Marine airplane.
Because the Army also has fixed-wing aircraft.
Yeah.
But they're small.
Yeah, a good majority of the fixed wing, I believe, is all.
They're all cargo. Well, the Army's fixed-wing aviation
is more for
units
troop and cargo.
Is cargo.
Yeah. For troop and except for troop and cargo. The Air Force and your Navy has more of the attack stuff. I wonder if it's possible to yeet an A-10 Warthog off of an aircraft carrier. Landing on it's going to be a different story, but I wonder if you could yeet one off of it. What would happen to it? Would it be successful, or would... It was an absolute, completely random-ass thought. I don't think you... I think an aircraft carrier is too short, even with a catch cable, to...
It's going on a wrestling cable.
I like metric.
Fully loaded, it takes 4,000 feet. Which is a short distance.
So, in theory, you could yeet it off. But then again, I don't think it's very wise to yeet it.
I mean, but that's taking an external load of 16,000 pounds.
I don't think anybody's ever tried it. Because I do know there are just some aircraft that are just too heavy to be yeeted. Because I believe we use...
Well, I mean, if they're slinging a 66,000 pound fucking F-18 off...
Actually, there are just some that are too heavy, but...
No, because they landed in a C-130 on the forestall and it took off under its own power.
But see, cargo planes are built different. If I'm not mistaken, cargo planes are built to be able to take off of just about anything.
That plane is built to be indestructible. So the only thing you might have to do is put different landing I mean, its landing gear is thick.
What, the A10?
Yeah, it very well could actually land and take off from a carrier.
It was just a thought that popped into my head because I wasn't sure if we ever throw one off of a carrier.
No,
Before.
it belongs strictly to the Air Force.
In the Air Force,
I mean, it's possible.
And the Air Force treats all of their aircraft with kid gloves.
Except for the A-10.
Honestly, I think they're actively trying to kill the A-10 just to see what can kill it.
Because at one time, all the branches flew both the F-4, A-4, the A-7, and the A-1.
Right.
And there was minor differences in all of them.
Right.
It was mainly avionics, except for the fucking A1. They're like, it's all fucking flight controls and knobs and shit. There's not much differences. But I don't see why you couldn't. You'd have to make up the same landing gear. Oh, no, you couldn't.
I mean, the A-10's basically just a flying gun.
The landing gear's offset.
I'm not talking about landing it on the carrier.
The landing gear is offset. It's off-centered.
So you couldn't even yeet it off.
I don't think you could yeet it off because
You need an A-10.
I have one.
You need to put it together.
The SPAD flew off on its own.
Which is that one?
The A1, the propeller-driven one.
Show the audience. We have a camera that moves now.
So that one right there,
It's got the black bomb hanging underneath
that's a
it.
fuel tank. That's the A1 Skyraider. That would just fly off on its own. And then you got the F4, A6. Those were all carrier borne. But with its front gear being off center, well, maybe not. You really got my fucking tism going.
Was purely a could you do it?
I'm gonna look that up. That would be a question for Ashley, actually.
Well, sadly, she's underway, so I don't think she may be in a dead zone. Outward communication wise. But
They're saying no. Landing gear and airframe are not designed for the stresses of carrier landings, which involve high landing speeds and use of arresting cables. Well, yeah, Well, it is theoretically possible to adapt an A-10 for carrier operations. It would involve significant modifications and would likely negate its primary role as ground attack aircraft. Well, yet no shit. They had to do the same thing with the F-35.
right.
They had to beef up the actual fuselage of the aircraft and then landing gear as well and make folding wings. But that thing is designed to take a fucking pounding. So you're telling me that airframe couldn't...
That you couldn't make those slight modifications?
And the thing is, it has a low stall speed.
So you wouldn't, it would, because,
I mean, you're talking about a
correct me
plane.
if I'm wrong, but I know you have to position a carrier a certain way involving the wind to get them off at the
No,
speed they need to.
no, not anymore.
Oh, not anymore?
Not
That's what I said, correct me if I was wrong.
in World War II in Korea, yeah. But with
But
the
in
invention
today's,
of
you
the
go-
steam catapult, you can
In
launch
today's,
them.
you can
It
launch them.
helps when you turn them into the wind because it provides more lift.
Right.
That's why they always turned them into the wind to launch, because you had that wind. When you move a
can
ship
also
into the
turn it
wind,
into the wind to help them land too, because it helps.
because you need the lift.
Because you help slow them down.
Yeah,
and
you-
help as well.
Well, no, it's still providing lift at low speeds.
Right.
That's why you take off into the wind
And you land in the wind.
and land in the wind.
You could, again, with today's catapults, now you could go through and send them off against the wind in an absolute emergency if you can't get it.
I think they
To
just yeet them
turn.
off no matter what, actually.
But optimal conditions would be able to go through and throw them out into the wind. Throw them out with the wind at their
Yeah,
head.
and with the
tailwind.
carriers moving. I didn't do it.
Excuse you. Quit trying to look up my skirt.
I did not do that.
Can you do me a favor? And stop getting fresh with me? Whoever's controlling my camera? But
But with the speed of the carriers at a constant speed all the time, because they never have to run out of fuel, there's
yeah,
always
now that the nuclear power,
yeah,
you don't have to
there's
worry
always
about it.
wind coming over the deck, so they don't have to worry about stall speeds that much.
Right. And
However,
since,
with the
like,
A10 having a low stall speed and lots of lift from those fucking wings,
I think they'd be more worried about it not getting into the air and more of it just going over the side.
yeah, because the top speed of that plane is only 460 miles an hour.
Could you imagine managing to successfully yeet one off of the carrier?
It would be
And then
interesting.
actually getting into the air?
Be like, fuck me, made it.
That wasn't supposed to work. What do you mean that wasn't supposed to work? It wasn't supposed to work.
I mean, technically, you could launch a B-17 off a carrier.
I mean, it's got the deck space for it. Deck space.
Launching as in, that's how powerful the catapults are.
Right. But you just gotta worry about where the fuck the wings are going. But again, the A-10 isn't actually an airplane, it's a gun with wings.
Pretty much, yes.
Made by General Electric.
Actually, the gun is made by General Electric. The plane itself was made by Fairchild Republic.
Oh, I'm quite surprised I managed to actually go through and take one look at this thing and going, alright.
And actually, one of the advisors when it came to designing the plane was a Stuka ace from the Eastern Front. And he said if you want to be successful on killing Russians, you need a really big gun and a plane designed around the gun.
And thus the abomination known as the A-10 was born.
Yes. And
Because we took it as a challenge.
said, hold my beer, watch this.
You can't do that.
Well, the Air Force never wanted it. It's the plane the Air Force never wanted.
And they keep trying to crash the damn thing, and it refuses to die.
No, they're trying to kill it in Congress.
Look, it's like the Laffy. I can guarantee you it's not gonna die. They can keep trying, but the A-10's got something special.
Yeah, it's loved by troops.
That,
It's loved by the guys it's getting paid to protect.
because again, it is designed for danger close missions. And with very little friendly fire involved. So yeah. Will you stop moving my camera? It's a new camera. We're still learning the damn thing. But I mean, like I said, it's. I just think the A-10 is really cool. But again, you've got the Air Force that treats their planes with kids' gloves, and then you got the Navy actively trying to kill theirs. Because they actively push theirs to the actual limit. Because, and it said in Top Gun Maverick just right, it's not the plane, it's the pilot.
Well, also at the same time, the Navy also wants to know what those planes can do because they're always in a combat environment.
Right, and
so
you
to
have
speak.
to know what a plane can do so that you can know exactly where to put your carriers.
And also at the same time, the book is more of a guideline.
It's more like a guideline than actual rules.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's more. Whereas the Air Force will go by the book no matter what.
Right. But
hey,
see,
we have
Air
a flame
Force...
out. Okay, well, do your restart procedures. Navy has a flame out. Okay,
just cut
the book.
Engine.
The book isn't working. I'm going to try something different. Air Force, you actually have
stupid.
Yeah, Air Force, you have to get permission
to do something stupid.
Navy, on the other hand, is like,
do what you gotta do.
Fuck it.
Do what you gotta do.
And that's why, in my opinion at least, I think naval aviators are far superior over Air Force aviators.
It's because the Air Force doesn't really go too, in comparison, they don't go too far from land.
No.
To the Navy
because
that actively does.
Yeah, the Navy's job is to protect that carrier.
Right.
And projecting power.
If you need to know exactly what you can do to that plane so that you know, okay, I know if this plane loses a wing, it can only go X amount before
I have to eject.
Before it has to eject. So if I position a carrier well within that X amount, then I can get that aircraft onto the carrier.
You also have to remember that carrier has other ships around it as well.
Right.
And that carrier also has squadrons dedicated for search and rescue.
Right.
Also has electronic warfare.
Right. Can I finish?
No, because you're already dead wrong. Love you. Give me the marker before I get hit.
But they could go through and say, I can put a carrier within this distance and give my plane a shot to come back without having to worry about the pilot having to eject and then initiate search and rescue. That's why letting me finish before saying I was wrong is important. Because I needed to finish telling you what the plan was.
No, I already knew what the plan was.
But that's the thing. That's why
I just knew what the plan was, executed the plan, threw away the plan.
But that's why the Navy needs... That's an example of why the Navy needs to know what their plans can do. So that they know exactly where most likely, if the pilot does have to eject, they know well within where exactly they're likely to eject, and if they can get that plane back to the carrier, aka home, they can bring the plane home.
If his plane's damaged to the point where it's too great of a risk to actually land it, he's going to get within that strike group.
And then he's going to
punch out. Because chances are you don't really want to land an aircraft on a carrier that's damaged. Because, yeah, you might be able to make it back onto that deck, but then you run the risk of slamming into the deck because your
Right.
landing gear just fell off. Or maybe your arrestor hook is gone.
Right.
Or
Well, that's where you foul the deck if necessary.
yeah, but as soon as you put that net up, guess what? Then everybody's got to come and get
Right.
that plane off
that's
that
why
net.
that's why it's an emergency procedure. It's an absolute last ditch effort before you have to do anything.
But
like
you
that.
also have to remember you have other planes in that. If it's a strike group, or
Right.
as in not the carrier strike,
Eh,
well, carrier battle
in the
group.
flight,
Sorry,
basically.
strike group, as in the planes. What about the rest of them?
Right, I know they can't land until that deck is no longer foul.
Right.
But what I'm saying is they need to know the extent of what their aircraft can do.
Yeah.
For a situation where if there's a chance you can save the plane, you can get back to the carrier. If you can't save the plane, you're closer to your search and rescue.
Also depends on the plane as well. If you're talking about a 20-year-old F-18,
They're
just punch out.
just
Fucking punch out.
just go.
If you're talking about a brand new F-35,
Get that bitch back on fire.
they're gonna the Air Force is somewhat the same way, because if you're talking about a B-52, a B-1, or a B-2, which is a strategic bomber, they're gonna do everything in their power to land.
Try to save it. Yeah.
Right, because they don't make them anymore.
Right.
However, with F-15s, F-6 and
They're
F-16s,
cookie cutters.
I mean, F-16s are a dime a dozen. You can just replace it. F-15s, yeah, they're making the E-axis now, so yeah, you can afford to lose one or two.
Right.
The F-22s, yeah, you better not crash that fucking billion-dollar aircraft. Because you are
You better try to get that bitch back on that deck.
back on the ground fairly in one piece. Unless you're a Marine flying an F-35 and you punch out and that plane keeps going. Because we all know what happened to that one. Lost my plane. Where'd it go? Over that way.
Where the fuck the autopilot took it.
Oh, it's
Stop playing with my camera.
No, it's motion sensor. Forgot, it's a motion sensor. Over here. Yeah, look at me.
But yeah, wasn't the autopilot still on that particular F-35? That would.
I don't remember if it was on or something shorted it out to turn it on.
Kept flying until it ran out of fuel. If I'm not
Well, it's not the
mistaken.
first time something like that has happened. And F-106 Delta Dart did it, or Delta Dagger.
Gremlins, man. Gremlins.
No, it's just the way it was designed. And several DC-3s have done it too,
Gremlins.
because of the way the wings are designed.
They're just gonna keep going until they run out of power.
No, like the engines on the DC-3 it was out of fuel. The guys bailed out, but it kept gliding because of how big the wing area was and how much lift it produced. And
said, "Fuck
then
you."
with the F-106, the guy lost engine power, punched out, but it glided right down into some
Could you-
farmer's field.
Could you imagine being the escort for the, knowing you have to punch out, and then having to go through and be ready to scuttle it if necessary, just to keep fly? Where's the pilot? Oh, the pilot's not in the plane anymore. Okay, have you scuttled the aircraft? Or do you have a location on the wreckage? Yeah, it's still flying.
Yeah.
What the fuck do you mean?
Well,
it's
they
still
recovered both aircraft because they happened over the U.S.
The fuck do you mean? It's still flying. Bitch, it's still fucking flying.
I think it was a.
Do you want us to shoot it down?
It was a single flight of an F-106. So the pilot punched out, and he didn't know his aircraft just continued on without him.
His aircraft was supposed to go down while he went up.
It was going down.
Because by the logic of a canopy ejection,
Canopy comes off, ejection seat comes out.
ejection seat comes out, aircraft
But
goes
that
down
those
because
planes,
there's nobody holding the sticks anymore.
but that plane was so well designed with its delta wing that it glided itself down to the ground.
He probably could have stayed in the plane.
But procedure dictated he punch out.
I could just imagine the debrief on that one. So the plane is still in one piece, for the most part. And you punched out. That's what procedure told me to do. Procedure told me I have no engine power, I have no fuel, I have no way to control this aircraft. So I punched out, fully expecting it to crash. But it's right here.
No, he didn't get in trouble for it. They were actually quite impressed with the.
Like I said, could you imagine the debrief on that one? You know, I fully expected it to crash. Everybody fully expected it to do what normal planes do when they run out of fuel.
Just kind of nosedive.
Which, when they run out of fuel, and there's nobody behind the stick, which is crash. This one didn't get the memo. This one decided, fuck you, I'm a glider. I can only imagine the look on that farmer's face. Why is there a military check in my
But
field?
it was during wintertime, out in the Midwest, out in the breadbasket, and some farmer's son and farmer's daughter were driving along in a car, and all of a sudden they see this fucking plane crossing the field right in front of the fucking road and kind of skidded to a stop. They're like, what the fuck was that?
Are we getting invaded? We should probably go make sure the pilot's okay.
Yep,
Because-
that's exactly what they did.
because
And
that's
there's
normal.
nobody there, so they ran and called the authorities, and
So who do we call?
I think
it's stamped
the
with US
pilot
Marines.
punched out like 5 or 10 miles away. It was impressive.
He was fully expecting to see a fireball. The plane just wanted a nap.
They recovered it and put it back in service.
Alright, just put a new canopy on it, put a new
If
seat
I'm
in
not
it.
mistaken, I think it's a museum piece someplace.
The plane that wanted to be a glider.
Technically, all planes are gliders.
Plane that wanted to be an unpowered glider.
All gliders are unpowered. That's the definition of a glider. It's an unpowered aircraft.
The plane that wanted to be a glider. Because it got all of its power. I bet you there. Yes, there's science and everything about.
No,
behind
I
it.
gotta find the story now.
But if you want to go the supernatural route, there was a guardian. Pick your whatever of choice, watching out for everybody that day. Because think about it, had that plane actually crashed the way it was going to crash, there's a chance the farmer and his daughter could have been seriously hurt.
That's it. The F-106 Delta Dart, nicknamed the Cornfield Bomber, is famous for an incident in 1970 where it landed itself after the pilot ejected during a training exercise. The aircraft, after entering a flat spin, recovered on its own and executed...
There is a Latin saying.
E pluribus unum. Yeah, no. That's on the dollar bill. Out of one comes many. Out of many comes one.
No.
That's the country's motto.
Clearly people have forgotten that.
The aircraft entering a flat spin. So it was spinning like this. Recovered on its own and executed a gentle belly landing in a Montana field.
It just didn't like the pilot. Yeah, because
In February 1970, Captain Gary Faust was piloting an F-106 during a training mission when his aircraft entered a flat spin. Despite his efforts, Faust was unable to recover control and ejected at 15,000 feet. After the ejection,
it was the ejection that
Yep.
gave it just enough, gave it just the right amount of power it needed to right itself.
After the ejection, the F-106 surprisingly recovered from the spin, stabilized, and flew for a distance before making a gentle, unpiloted landing in a field. The aircraft landed smoothly enough that the engine was still running when local authorities arrived. Okay, so I didn't get the whole story. The F-106 was recovered, repaired, and returned to service, even being flown again by Faust years later. Yep, I was right. It is now on display at the National Museum of the United States Air Force. It's a museum piece.
Yep. So wait, the pilot that had originally saved the aircraft unknowingly piloted it again later on?
Yeah.
Could you imagine the spirit of that particular aircraft? Oh, you again.
That's all the damage that happened to it. Minor damage.
It got a paper cut.
Yep.
Oh my god, that was. It needed the extra thrust.
He deployed the drag chute as a last resort while attempting to recover. When it failed, he ejected at 15,000 feet. The reduction in weight and change in the center of gravity caused by the removal of the pilot, coupled with the blast force of the ejection seat pushing the nose of the aircraft down, which had been trimmed by Faust for takeoff, and idle throttle caused the aircraft to recover from the spin. The previously set trim then helped stabilize the attitude of the plane after the initial nose down. One of the other pilots on the mission reported to have radio Faust during his descent by parachute saying, "You better get back in it."
Well, you fixed the aircraft, so get back in it.
From his parachute, Faust watched incredulously as the now pilotless aircraft descended and skidded to a halt in a farmer's field near Big Sandy, Montana. Faust drifted into nearby mountains and was later rescued by local residents on snowmobiles. Oh my god. Hey, you better get back in it. That's so...
No, that's not his wingman at all, is it? If it was you, you'd be telling the authorities after not seeing the fireball, "Hey, can I have my plane back?"
Oh god.
But yeah, you could just imagine the spirit of that particular aircraft seeing him again, going, "Oh, it's you."
So, a recovery crew from McClellan Air Force Base arrived on the scene and began to dismantle the aircraft, removing its wings for transport aboard a railroad flat car. The damage to the aircraft was minimal. Indeed, one officer on the recovery crew is reported to have stated that if there had been any less damage, he could have flown the aircraft out of the field.
Yeah, you just have to put the seat back.
He pissed that plane off.
Only to have it fly again with him.
Yep.
Could you just imagine
Yep.
the conversations he has with that aircraft when he flies it the second time?
Oh,
Are
God.
we going to crash again, sweetheart? Am I going to have to eject again and let you land yourself?
I think this is one of the kits I have. I think I have a Delta Dart. Yeah, I have a... Pretty sure I have a F-106.
I mean, that's absolutely hilarious. Bitch, you were supposed to crash! I said no. What would have been more hilarious is if he had landed pretty close to said aircraft, walked up to it, and when the recovery crew arrived, as well as rescue, would have been... You would have been arguing with the plane. You would have been standing right there with the plane, arguing with it, as if it's going to talk back. The officers would have come up and would have found you yelling at it, going, "Bitch, you were supposed to fucking crash."
So, the DC-3 I was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
It was a U.S. Air Force DC-3 that ran out of gas, and with the crew having bailed out, landed itself in a cornfield in 1957 over Missouri.
What is it with fields?
That's the
Farmers' fields and
that's
aircraft.
actually the best place to land.
Yeah. I guess it just wanted some corn. some of these aircraft, the spirits of these aircraft.
Well,
are
the
just,
DC-3 is still flying. It is still in service. There's Catalina Airlines, which flies from California to Catalina Island as a cargo transport, flying a World War II era DC-47, the cargo variant.
Mhm.
And then you go down into South America, and there are DC-3s, the Passion variant, still fucking flying from the 1930s.
Which is the one that decided to land itself in a cornfield? Was it the cargo or the passenger?
Cargo, U.S. Air Force C-47. If it has a C designation,
I know it's cargo, but you said.
But DC is Douglas Corporation,
So could you
which is now McDonnell Douglas. Well, which is now Boeing.
could you imagine if you were somebody who didn't believe that cars, planes, and things like that have their own unique spirits, coming up on one of these planes that had landed themselves, with the pilot standing next to it going, "Bitch, I bailed out of you because I thought you were crashing. This is not a crash. You were supposed to crash. But you're not crashing. Why didn't you crash?"
I mean,
Could you imagine somebody going through and being
if
like...
you were pilots and tankers,
they
and
are well aware that their vehicles and stuff have their own spirits. Excuse you. This is a us show, not a me show.
that show comes later.
It's because I'm very animated when I talk. Come on.
Zoom out. Zoom out.
Anyway.
Well, I mean, because even mechanics like me are fucking superstitious.
Could you imagine if you met somebody who wasn't superstitious like that, rolling up on an aircraft, on a pilot, talking to the aircraft that should have crashed, that by all logic should have crashed, and watch them have a full-on one-sided argument?
Oh, no, we've had one-sided arguments with Humvees in Iraq. Specifically with Satan's Child.
That you guys couldn't get to go past the motor pool before it said "fuck you."
It would leave the motor pool and come back the next day. I'm like, what's wrong with it now? It's overheating. We
just fixed that.
Fine, we'll take out the thermostat. Took it out. We leave. Come back an hour later. It's overheating. Okay, we'll disconnect the fan clutch. So the fan is running all the time. Okay, no longer overheating.
Now what's wrong with it?
Send it out, comes back the next day. It's overheating. What the fuck?
Could you imagine trying...
It's got coolant. Okay, fuck it. We'll replace the goddamn radiator. Okay.
That kind of sounds like one of those Humvees that you just kind of start pushing down unchecked roads looking for IEDs. Just to mechanically not have to deal with it.
It was a brand new fucking truck.
Exactly.
Okay, and then it would go out. It stops overheating. Somehow. Fucking somehow. I don't know how. It tore its drive shaft. And it yanked from the drive shaft all the brake lines running to the ass end of the truck and the hydraulic line for the rear winch as well.
Kind of makes you wonder what missions it was saving people from.
So we had to get a whole new drive shaft, all new brake lines, all new hydraulic lines, fix that up, send it out. Boom, there goes the transmission. Fuck.
And where was Satan's Child supposed to be going?
Convoy escort. All the other trucks were fine in that company, except for that truck. So we replaced the transmission with the chip. Because when you do that, there's a chip.
Mm-hmm.
Send it on its way. Comes back 2 days later. Blown fucking engine.
Anybody think to go to the chaplain and say, "Can you bless this"?
Nope. We don't need no stinking chaplain. We have chief.
Clearly it wasn't afraid of chief.
We replaced the engine. Not a big deal. We got 80 of them. Yes, we had like, I don't know, it was 80, we had like 20 or 30 Humvee engines in crates just laying around because we had that many fucking trucks. Place the engine on it. Stop moving the camera.
Leave the damn camera alone. You are having way too much fun.
That's got to be her doing it. So, anyways,
And she went mysteriously.
we just replaced the engine in. Okay, fine. Send it on its way. Bad transmission.
We just fixed the damn thing.
Replace the transmission. Send it out. Comes back. Guess what? Bad transmission.
And nobody thought to have this thing be blessed.
So then that's where we nickname it Satan's Child.
Did it ever fucking work?
No. Nope.
The VIN number had to have had.
It had 666 in its national stock number. I don't remember what the vehicle's actual serial number was because you have it. Each vehicle has its serial
Right,
number.
so that you know.
And
that you
then
identify
in
the
the
truck.
NSN, it had 666.
I bet you there was 666 and its serial number too.
Probably would not fucking surprise me.
But see,
That truck never left the wire. That is where we won the Ibis Tech competition, theater-wide, for bumpers and turret cupolas and shit, on designing them with the windshields and gunner shields.
right.
Yeah, my maintenance team did all that, and we never saw a fucking dime of that money.
Of course not.
No. Ibis Tech did, because they took our
course.
fucking dime, or designs. Bastards.
But I mean, it's kind of fun. Did it ever work at all? Like, were you able to drive it at all? It just wouldn't go past the wire.
Going outside the wire is going outside the fob.
I know. Were you able to drive it within the fob?
Yeah.
It just wouldn't go outside the wire.
No, we banned it.
You got tired of recovering.
Yeah. Yeah. So did their crews. Because unless it was a catastrophic breakdown, you could just tow it. They had tow bars.
Yep.
So unless something locks up the differentials or something, we didn't have to go get it.
What would have been really funny is if you went through and stuck a sign on it that said "Free to a Good Home."
I think that was one of the ones we gave to the Iraqi army.
Here, maybe it'll work better for you.
Because we handed over most of our 1025s and 1026s with the ad hoc armor.
Mm-hmm.
And
We're tired of dealing with this motherfucker.
that was one of the only 1114s that we handed over. Like, yeah, we're tired of this fucking piece of shit.
We don't want to fix it. They can fix it. Or blow it up. We don't care at this point.
It would be so satisfying if Satan's Child was taken out by a Reaper drone because it was being pushed by ISIS. Not driven, but pushed. Because it fucking broke down.
Piece of shit.
Be like, haha, I remember that fucking truck, you can deal with it.
Hey guys. Hey Americans. This truck no work.
Yep, we know.
Of course, a lot of them probably, they probably would have gotten rid of it pretty quickly once upon saying 666.
No. They don't believe in the same fucking
In some areas they
666.
do.
Yeah, no.
Because 666 is the market.
Somebody's moving our camera.
Will you quit moving our camera? You are having way too much fun. But yeah, no. And then you have the bomber that was nicknamed Old 666 that refused to fucking die. So you either get two things when it comes. You either get one or two things when it comes to the number 666.
Well, honestly,
You either get something that refuses to die, or something that always dies.
Ode 666 started out as a hanger queen.
Yeah, because of the superstition of her tail, number.
Well, it always came back shot up too.
Yeah, because of the superstition of her tail. And when the crew that actually took it and turned it to an absolute badass, and who still completed its mission.
Well, there was a B-26 that's nicknamed Flakbait because there wasn't a single inch of that aircraft that
didn't get
hit, and its trim, which means you had to. I'm not sure how you describe it. You had to fly with a certain amount of rudder and a certain amount of trim in the yoke,
right,
at like 26 degrees, which is a lot for an aircraft, because that's how much it was misaligned with the amount of fucking parts they had to put back onto the aircraft. And that was in the European theater of operations.
Look, you've got ones that never leave because they're always broke. You got the ones that are always attract bad luck, yet somehow manage to always come back. And then you've got things like the Laffy that took so much fucking damage, and she refused to fucking die.
Honestly, there's a lot of respect for the Laffy, because,
absolutely.
But most of that goes to not the ship, but the damage control teams.
Officers, yeah.
And the only other ship as famous as the Laffy that should have been made into a fucking museum.
Didn't we drop 2 nukes on it?
No, that was the Nevada.
That one was also too angry to die.
Was the Enterprise, the original CV-6.
Right. But at the time, I don't remember who what the first ship to become a museum ship was.
The Constitution. The Constitution is the world's oldest active afloat ship, commissioned ship.
I'm talking about museum ships.
Like world's first or America's first?
America's first museum ship.
I think it's the Constitution. I'm pretty sure it's the Constitution.
I honestly don't know. But if you go to Patriots Point in South Carolina, you can actually walk the Laffy, and there is actually footage of the battle that, by all logic, should have sunk her. Huh. What was the first museum ship in the U.S.? Because the ones that I know of offhand are the Yorktown, which is a carrier, the Laffy, Texas.
So technically, the Constitution isn't a museum ship.
I know she's not a museum ship. She's still in active service. She has not been decommissioned yet.
America's first museum ship is usually attributed to USS Texas.
The one whose crew gangsterly turned
But
D-Day.
that's because it was the first U.S. battleship to become a permanent museum.
Okay.
Note, although the USS Constitution is older and designated a museum ship in 1907, so she is a museum ship.
She's just not.
The USS Texas was the first permanent battleship memorial museum in the U.S. That's the difference.
Okay. So we got the
The
Texas.
Constitution is not a permanent museum because she's still a commissioned warship.
She's still in commission. But as far as permanent ones go, the USS Texas.
Yeah. USS Constitution designated a museum ship in 1907. It is the world's oldest commissioned naval warship still afloat.
Right. But yeah, we've got the Texas, the Mighty Mo,
You have all 4 Iowa classes.
which is Mighty Mo.
Iowa, New Jersey, Wisconsin, Missouri.
Right. And then you've got
You have several Essex class carriers. You have a couple Midway class carriers.
the ones that I'm, and then the ones that I know by name are, of course, the Texas, the Mighty Mo, and the Iowa.
Yeah.
And then you've got the Laffey.
You have the Massachusetts and the Alabama, which are Dakota class battleships, which are your first of the newer class fast battleships.
And you got the
They
Yorktown.
preceded the Iowa class.
Right.
You have the Olympic or the Olympia, which was Admiral Dewey's flagship at the Battle of Manila, which looks a lot like the Maine, which blew up in Havana Harbor.
Right.
Because you have the Hornet, the Intrepid, the Yorktown. I'm trying to think what the Intrepid is. No, all those 3 are all Essex class carriers. I think you have the Midway, which is a Midway class.
Like I said, I don't know all of them, but I know with the Laffey, you can go on her and you can actually watch footage from the battle that should have taken her out.
You got the Kid, the Lexington, the Sullivans, a couple of submarines.
Yeah, the Patriots Point's
Intrepid.
got a submarine, but I don't know what that one is. I don't remember.
I'm not sure what
think
the
it's
Orlick
really
is,
named.
or the Torques. The John W. Brown, which is a Liberty ship. Yep, you got the Midway, which is its own class. The Yorktown. Ainsworth. What's the Ainsworth? Oh, it's a frigate. It's a Knox class frigate. The U-505, which we captured. The Razorback, the Massachusetts, Lane Victory, Red Oak Victory. Red Oak Victory is a looks like it's a supply ship.
Huh. Apollo 8 is on the Yorktown, apparently.
Yeah, because it was recovered on the Yorktown.
It wasn't on the Yorktown when I went there. Or maybe it was and I just never saw it.
You probably just never saw it.
She's a huge ship. What do you want from me? So you got...
But actually, during the Apollo program, at that time, the Essex class carriers were anti-submarine carriers. So they were designed for ASW, so they had all the helicopters on board. So they were like, well, we'll just use the Essex class.
The submarine is not... is no longer at Patriots Point. It was the Clamagore. It's no longer there as of 2022.
Well, in Michigan, we have LST 325 and the Silversides, which is over in Muskegon.
That sucks. I wanted to take the kids to go see that submarine. But then again, that submarine was also haunted as fuck. There was something on it that didn't like people being on it.
Probably one of the crew members.
Yeah, as of 2022, it was recycled. This decision came after years of consideration and due to safety and environmental concerns, as well as funding issues. Yeah, the submarine is no longer at Patriots Point. Ow. And that was the Clamagore. I probably butchered that, but And then, of course, you got the Laffy. She's still there. She's haunted as well. But as long as you don't fucking badmouth her, or badmouth the crew, Ghost on the Laffy pretty much leave people alone. You'll, depending on how much energy there is in the area. Around certain holidays, you can occasionally spot a sailor or two.
Yep.
But they don't interact. They just, it's a residual haunting. They just go about their daily life.
Well, I'd rather go to an American Legion or a VFW because you get to see tanks and helicopters. Because it's actually easier to make a tank and a helicopter into a static display than it is a fucking ship.
Yeah, because the ship needs shore power.
Yeah.
The Yorktown, she's got some haunting on her, yes. But she's not nearly as haunted. Again, she's not nearly as haunted as the Laffy. But again, both of them, I've never really felt any.
You want to know what the most common type of tank you see outside American Legion and VFWs are?
The Sherman?
No.
Then what?
Pattons. The Patton series tank, whether it's an M48 or an M60. Because we made so many and they're in service for so long until the Abrams took over in 88.
Look, when the U.S. pumps things out, we fully expect it to be destroyed. We design it to not be destroyed, but we expect it to be destroyed. Kind of like in the MASH episode, where all the patients are gathering up, but the ambulances aren't coming, and Potter has to go out there and say, no, the Army expects the ambulance to get shot up. That's why they make so many.
Yeah.
Just get them here.
Actually, after World War II, we either destroyed a lot of Shermans or we sent them to other countries. And then after those countries...
We made too many of them. So we'll just keep the spare parts, but we'll, I guess, decommission, like, all the odd numbers. Why all the odd ones? Because that's what I fucking hate.
Well, because after World War II, the Sherman was obsolete. Because you had the M26 Pershing coming out. Even though it was the most common tank used in fucking Korea. And by the time Korea was done, the M26 Pershing was obsolete.
Mm-hmm.
So they came out with the M48.
What people also don't understand is that we don't, with some things, we don't fully decommission.
No, we just
our
put them
entire
in.
we don't fully decommission an entire fucking thing unless we literally have no way to maintain something.
We sell it.
And then it's somebody else's problem.
And then, what was it? The M47s and the M48s were used extensively in Vietnam. The Marines had a fucking heavy tank called the M103.
Look, the Marines get a lot of leftovers from
No,
everybody.
the Marines had their own tank.
Right.
The Army was supposed to adopt the tank, and the Army didn't want it. Because, for whatever reason. So the Marines adopted it, and it became the M103.
We give the Marines a lot of things to keep them busy.
It was one of our first tanks with the 120 on it. And then after Vietnam, or during Vietnam, because the M60 is a 60s and 70s design.
Mm-hmm.
We came out with the M60. And that stayed in until we started producing the M1 Abrams.
Which is your favorite tank?
One of. It's not my favorite tank, because my favorite tank happens to be a Sherman variant. But the Abrams is probably by far the best tank out there.
Right.
And I will die on that hill.
I'm not saying anything.
Well, because it's getting a lot of flack right now because it's being defeated in fucking Ukraine. Well, it's not being used the way it's supposed to be used.
Yeah, anything is a smoke machine if you use it wrong enough.
Yeah. our doctrine is combined arms.
Yes.
So going back to Percy Hobart, the man who actually came up with tank warfare, and then Heinz Guderian read that book and was like, okay, I'm going to take that and make it better and put it into combined arms, which eventually came into fucking Blitzkrieg, which is the Germans' way of doing it. However, Blitzkrieg is breakout tactics. You use your tanks to break through the enemy's forces, and then you flood it with infantry.
Right.
Using artillery and air support.
And as the Germans proved, if done correctly, it is a very effective tactic.
Right. It is a very effective
But
tactic.
you have to use it correctly.
They did.
They're the ones who invented it, so
Yeah. And then the Americans saw that, and we went, huh,
let's make it better.
we're going to do this a little bit differently. Because our doctrine was somewhat similar. The Germans are going to swarm you with tanks with infantry and support. We knew we were going to be invading. So we said, what do we have more of? Tanks or men? We have
Tanks.
more men. And we're going to train them better. And we can outproduce anybody out there. So we're just going to make a shit ton of aircraft and a shit ton of tanks and a shit ton of artillery.
It's because if you think, because of the fact that in the entire time the U.S. has been a country, we're one of the few countries that has a wartime economy and a non-wartime economy.
Yeah.
And that's why
But
the
the
U.S.
way
can
we,
go
but
through
the way
and
we
flip
adopted
that switch so
Blitzkrieg
quickly.
was this. We're going to soften you up with artillery. And when we mean we're going to soften you up with fucking artillery, we're going to bomb the shit out of you from 10 to 30,000 feet first. And then, at the same time that's happening, we're going to roll artillery at you, which means we're going to fire artillery and it's going to be a rolling fire. And then we're just going to continue for, I don't know, an hour or so. And then we're going to send in infantry with the tanks. We're not going to use the tanks as breakthrough. We're going to send in infantry and tanks at the same fucking time because tanks can't survive without infantry. As the Germans fucking found out.
Again, the
But
German-
while that's going on, we have these things called airplanes that we have 50 cal fucking machine guns on that we're going to attach bazookas and rockets and bombs to,
that we walk
and
our
they're going to
pilots up at
communicate
6:00 in the morning.
that they're going to communicate with forward air reservers at that time. And if something needs to be destroyed right then and there, guess what? The Air Force is going to blow the shit out of you as well. That is the very definition of combined arms.
Right.
It worked 80 years ago, and it still works today. However, we just do it on a much larger scale because we have Reaper drones that will shoot a missile at you from 5 miles away and knock on your fucking front door without knocking. However, However, the way the Abrams is supposed to be used is you send in the Abrams, and at the same time, you have Bradleys, which are the infantry fighting vehicles.
Right.
Inside the Bradleys are troops, secure the area. Or you have strikers with troops,
People.
with people. Also, we have anti-drone technology
Yep.
that jams the fucking signals, whether it's fiber optic or radio. So they don't have to worry about fucking drones. It's not that hard to fucking come up with, people.
Except,
But the Ukrainians, who aren't really fighting to fight, aren't really fighting for their country, they're just fighting to fight because they want more fucking money, aren't using combined arms tactics.
Zelensky wants more money.
Yeah.
Because so long as he can keep the war going, by their constitution, he can stay in power.
Right.
And that's what a
Meanwhile,
lot of
the
people are
only
not
person
understanding.
over there fighting a conventional war with drones on the side is Putin.
At this point, he's just toying.
Yeah.
He's
Because
sending
if Putin-
prisoners.
That's exactly what the Wagner Group is.
He's sending prisoners to the front lines. He's not even sending his best, well-trained troops. He's toying with them.
Because if he wanted to,
Oh, he's got the superior. He could take them out.
he's not doing anything in mass. Or in mass.
He could very easily reclaim
Ukraine.
the Ukraine if he truly wanted to. But the Russian people don't want. They want this over with as well. And unlike his predecessors, he's actually listening to his people.
You know he's been in power for like 20 years, right?
I'm aware of that,
Okay.
yes.
Because before
Because
Putin
he can actually
was...
take out. Because they're actually allowed to take out political opponents.
Do you know what was ruling before Putin? It was the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
There hasn't been that much time between Putin and the Soviet Union. There was Medvedev, or whatever his name is, and then Putin, Medvedev, and then Putin, and then Putin, and then Putin, and then Putin. He's been in power for...
Because he keeps killing his political rivals, yes.
Yeah.
I'm well aware of how he stays in power. It's a free election.
At this
But
time,
the
you
problem is your,
may as well just call him Tsar.
But he's actually listening to the people who don't want to be involved in a war, in yet another fucking war. That's why he hasn't sent in his own well-trained military, because that's not what his people want.
I bet you the crime rate down is going down.
That's one way to do it. Where? I thought you wanted to be a hardcore killer. Yeah, except I get caught. I don't go to prison. I go to the front fucking line. Thank you, but I choose life.
Maybe that's what we ought to do here.
And it would save the taxpayers if you... It would get rid of privatized prisons. And you could actually take the prison system back to what it was originally for.
A reformatory.
Exactly. You could actually have people go in, learn a trade, and be able to find work in that trade. Because so many work release programs for prisons died.
Yeah.
Because you make more money if you keep them behind bars. Versus actually letting them out back into the community for non-violent offenders, obviously, for people who were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Basically, kids who did something stupid.
Right. Everybody makes mistakes.
Everybody makes mistakes, but unfortunately a lot of those mistakes cost... There is now an 18-year-old who has fucked his entire life up because he decided to do something stupid.
And those 18-year-olds do. They're young, dumb, and full of cum. What do you expect?
This
You talking about the driver?
No.
Oh.
No, that one is something different. No, I'm talking about the 18-year-old who decided that they were going to bomb or that they were going to attempt to bomb the federal building.
Was that the one who was off his meds?
Yes, he's off his meds, but unfortunately, he will never see the light of day. Because the insanity plea doesn't send you to prison.
It sends you to
It sends you to a mental institution that is a prison. And unfortunately, what a lot of people fail to understand with the insanity plea is you stay in the mental institution until you're stable. Then you serve out the rest of your sentence in prison. He is 18 years old. And because everybody else in his life failed him, he pays the consequences. Well, he's schizophrenic, he's off his meds. Whose responsibility as their caretaker to make sure he stays on his meds? His doctor failed him. His parents failed him. People with schizophrenia need to be monitored.
On the table.
Sorry, I forget that is a stupid sensitive microphone. People with schizophrenia need to have a very stable support system.
Yes.
And his failed him. And unfortunately, he listened to the voices in his head that told him to do something illegal.
I listen to what the voices in my wife's head tell me to do.
And see, that's what other people are also not understanding about schizophrenia. Is it's not something to be glorified.
If I'm ever diagnosed with it, just shoot me.
Actually, I'll do what they do in zombie movies. I'll just chain you to a wall and watch it spiral. No, I wouldn't actually do that. For legal reasons, that's a joke. But even with antipsychotics, people with schizophrenia will still occasionally hear the voices. They will still occasionally see the people.
Do you know that deaf people don't hear voices? They actually see moving hands.
Yeah. Because that's their language.
What if they didn't know ASL?
Well, ASL is purely just American Sign Language. Every place that's got somebody who's deaf has a form of sign language. And people with schizophrenia don't always hear the voices in a language they speak.
Yeah, I know. I've been around schizophrenic people. They're scary when they fucking go off.
Oh, yeah. That's why they have to have the very strong support system.
Well, there's multiple stages of it, too. It's like Alzheimer's. There's 1, 2, and 3. If they're stage 2 and 3, there's no coming back from it. Doesn't matter how much...
They have to be institutionalized, and they're got to be pretty much partially sedated most of the time.
Stage 3, yes. Stage 2, not so much. Trust me, I know all about it because we took in some schizophrenic patients. Right.
If caught early enough, you can get it under control pretty quickly, and it shouldn't spiral too far. But if you don't catch it quickly enough, and what some people want to go through and say about schizophrenia is like, oh, all their voices tell them to go out and hurt people. No, some of those voices tell them to hurt themselves. And some of those voices are just there to be a nuisance, are just there to drive them crazy.
Are you real, or are you a figment of my imagination? Or would that be dementia?
No, dementia is something completely different.
Uh-huh.
But no, there are stories of people with schizophrenia who have had full-on conversations with empty air, thinking that there is somebody there.
I have had full-on conversations with empty fucking air. You've seen it.
Right, but somebody with you do not have schizophrenia because you will answer yourself. You will have a one-sided conversation with with an answer and a reply with yourself. People with schizophrenia will go through and you'll have a full-on one-sided
I
conversation.
was making a joke.
And it's like being on a cell phone. You only hear half the conversation. Because not all the voices with somebody who's schizophrenic is violent. Sometimes it's just a way for.
So basically, most mechanics have some form of schizophrenia when they're working on a vehicle because it's a one-sided fucking conversation.
No, that's just general insanity. Because you answer yourself back.
Not all the time. Most of the time, I'm cussing and swearing and having a conversation with the vehicle, and the vehicle's not answering me back.
That's why it's not schizophrenia, because the vehicle doesn't answer back. It's only an issue if it starts talking back.
It talks back in its own fucking way by eating my goddamn 10mm.
No, that's just a sacrifice to the gods. Because after you sacrifice that 10mm, all of a sudden shit works, right?
Yeah.
It's a sacrifice to the mechanical gods.
It's like, you little bastard, give it back. She hasn't answered whether or not she's playing with the camera or not.
She's not going to answer you. She's not going to go through and say, yes, I'm messing with your fucking camera.
Hey, can we talk about Anthony Snowden?
No.
Or Edward Snowden. I'm going to start doing research on him.
That would be an episode in of itself.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, we still have Waco.
Go up. Raise the camera up. Can you raise the camera up? Huh? Can you raise it up? Give you a treat. Raise the camera up. It's either her or it's a ghost. One of the two.
Or a very advanced cat. But see, now when it comes to haunted places,
So I have the remote.
yes, I know you have the remote. I watched you grab the remote. When it comes to different people who do ghost hunting stuff, I don't have any respect for anybody who goes in to a location just to prove it's haunted.
Why are we getting on ghost hunting? Because I really don't want to talk about ghost hunting.
Because you mentioned ghosts.
Because we live in an old Victorian and we've seen the ghost.
We've seen a picture of the ghost. We haven't actually seen her physically, but I don't think she has enough.
We don't go on the other side of the to the other apartment.
Right.
So we don't need to see her.
We leave her to her own devices.
Yeah. We leave them alone, they leave me alone.
Exactly.
There's nothing to be said. I don't want to get into it. No.
Let's see.
I have to pee again.
I can't help you.
It's because I've been drinking water.
But if you could bring something to drink back on the way back.
What would you like?
I don't know, just something drinkable.
Getting to the bathroom, on the other hand, is kind of a challenge because there's an 80-pound fucking dog in there.
Yeah, there's a German Shepherd who decides he wants to be in the way. Let's see. I have lost my train of thought. Will you stop? My computer's not liking the fact that it's connected via Bluetooth to our TV so that we can actually, read comments and actually see what the hell we're doing. So it's having a minor freak out. Drink?
Alcoholic or not?
I don't care. I just don't have a drink.
Still no.
Okay.
I'm hungry
Well, it is 10:30 at night, so. There's now a dragon on the floor. Ugh. Now that I am done sneezing. But yeah. How did I go for the Army's 250th birthday to whatever the fuck we're on now?
Oh.
No, there's a reason why it's called History and Shenanigans.
Yep.
As long as we start off with what we initially talked about, we're going to talk about. I'm surprised you haven't poured a drink to toast.
I did too much drinking last night.
Yeah, and how did your heartburn react to that?
It wasn't heartburn, it was just rock gut.
Yeah, your stomach didn't like that much. So are we going to listen when I say that enough is enough?
Nope.
Because you're going to put yourself in that exact same position again because you're a moron?
Yep.
Well, at least you didn't... At least you're honest. Yep, take your nighttime meds.
Should probably wrap it up soon. It's getting kind of warm in here.
Okay. Well then, we will leave it here for tonight. And we say good night. And again, happy birthday to the United States Army.
No,
Big-
these are my pills.
Oh shit, they're due for theirs as well.
Yeah, and we gotta take care of the dogs
Yep.
anyways. So
So-
3 hours is enough for a broadcast.
Good night, and we'll see y'all next time. Bye.